All right, all right. So, what are we up to today? Well, we got a few viewer requests yesterday, so we're going to check those out. I got a couple things loaded up, ready to go for us. And there we go. That's my voice. And then we're going to check out the Whatever podcast. That doesn't start for like an hour though, so we're going to do some other stuff first. Might take a few more requests if anyone stops by. And that'll do it. First, I just have a few housekeepings to do here. A couple of housekeeping things while we wait for a couple people to trickle in. And I want to do one thing. Also. All right. All right. Looks like we have a couple people in here. We're going to be doing a couple of viewer requests today, and then we're going to be checking out the Whatever podcast when that starts up. I think they're doing a regular table one, so we might give it like a half an hour before we join, so that we can skip ahead a little if we need to, because those get long. We're definitely not going to watch the whole thing because it's like 6 hours usually, or 7 hours. But for starters, I got a request yesterday to check out someone named Jola Talks Politics. And so he was recently on Rob Noor. I know who Rob Noor is, so we're going to check him out. And all right, here we go. This was about a month ago.
The United States of America is the
Hold on, buddy. Okay, here it is. Jola Talks Politics. And let's check this out. See what happens. See how it goes. Oh, here's the
I was
Rob
here to help
Moore.
you out, man. I didn't know if you had a debate for tonight. Well, apparently you thought you had a
I
debate,
think,
but you didn't
yeah,
have a debate, and
right. So
I'm like, I'm down.
I
We'll
would,
make it happen.
well, I thought we would agree on most things. So I'm looking for someone who I think would.
You, sir.
I'm good. I'm disappointed. I was hoping that you were like some ridiculously ugly troll, and then if you crush me in a debate,
All
I could be
right.
like, "Look at you, though." Like, so that's always a good win.
You know what? I actually do have commentary for the left. I think you might agree. Well, I guess just to start off, so I'm actually from, I know you're a Pennsylvania boy, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm from like the coal region, if you know where that is. So like,
Up north, northern Pennsylvania.
yeah, I was like an hour in proximity to like Centralia, where all
Okay, yeah,
the 50-year fire that'll be burning for another
sure.
200 years.
Wasn't that like the Silent Hill movie? Isn't that where like the inspiration was for it being filmed?
I think so. I know some people that did like if you go on Snapchat or Instagram, they have like the little mini TV shows. I know people that actually went on the fake ghost shows, and gave a fake testimony about how he was like in the cemetery at night in Centralia walking through and he's just
Fire.
yeah, and keep going, but not enough oxygen for it to like burn.
Right.
We're gonna get to
Oh, so
something
you're
of
around Butler
substance.
then, where the
Yes. Well,
I'm definitely, I guess I'll say progressive. I hate political labels because it really is annoying. Because I'm not super crazy on, I guess you could say, union policies. I don't know, some boring guys like between Kyle Kalinske and David Pakman, if you guys know who they are.
David Pakman. I like David Pakman's debates now, and he just asks questions. So it's actually not a bad thing to do that you learn to like make your argument in the form of a question. Well, why would he do that? What do you think about this? Because it gives a perception that you're controlling the discussion, right? Like you think about it like in your life, where have you been? What types of people are asking questions? Like a teacher, an attorney, right? Things of that nature. So it's like I always find that interesting when I watch David Pakman. It's always an interesting device that he's employing there to control it. Yeah, I mean, we talk about whatever you like. I will say real quick, just anecdotal on the gun story. Like it's interesting you say that. Everyone I know that owns guns, like there's, coming from my perspective, it's like, wow, the Second Amendment's fighting government tyranny. And that's true. I know a lot of people that they would cite that as one of the big reasons they own gun. But easily the most common reason to own a gun where I live is because most of the people I know rely on shooting a deer for food for the winter. Everybody hunts. Well, it's less and less every year, but when I grew up and went to high school, it was nothing for people to have their pickup truck as they were seniors that would drive to school and they'd have a gun rack in the back of their truck and their gun would be there and they'd bring their camo and then you go out hunting after school. So it's like when I did debate in college, I'd run into a lot of people who lived their entire lives in cities and it was like they couldn't believe it. They're like, what kind of things can you hunt and eat? And I was like, we used to go small game hunting. You'd shoot squirrel. You could have like up to 8 per time you went out, and they're like, "You've eaten squirrel?" But it's different worlds. If you're not from an area like this, to realize like that's just part and parcel of the culture. I know Democrats that are like super progressive, pro-union people. They're hunting, like it's around here. It is a big thing where even the Democrats are pro-gun because to them it's not even this tyranny thing. It's a utility thing. It's like, yeah, we live in the woods. We have guns. So it is interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize that even if it's niche, there are people that have policies, believe in policies that seem to go against the grain because of the unique geographical area they're living in. And another example could be right wingers that are pro-union in very specific unions, such as um, unions that have to do with police or unions that have to do with sort of energy workers, coal and things like that. So it's interesting when you find those little fractures in sort of political ideology where it's like, you get part of you says you should side with one. One thing you said there, though, you said you're pro-labor. Like, we could get to talking specifics and tariffs, whatever you want to talk about. But just to start the conversation, what do you think about so many unions starting to go for Trump? And it seems that like he is being seen by many unions and by many workers as the more pro-labor. Even the tariffs, a lot of industries are looking at farming industry, steel industry,
He's the current president. That's what I would say.
manufacturing, that it is now the Republicans, in particular MAGA, that's the pro-labor party.
I definitely think politics right now operates on a very cultural level. So very few decisions, even for labor movements, will be made purely from material or purely from economic policy. So I think, first off, the mentality in America where it's like, give me a chance to compete, make the playing field more level, and we'll perform, definitely supersedes other attitudes versus, for example, like the CHIPS Act or other forms of the government subsidizing something. I feel they would rather say, have tariffs so we have a better chance to compete rather than the government picking who's going to get government funds, picking winners and losers, picking which corporations get subsidies. So I think that's one of the big mentalities. And labor unions have always been pretty protectionist when it comes to outside, trade deals and especially China. And I think like even Bernie would talk, and he spoke on I think Anderson Cooper like last night about how he's pretty protectionist. He was against the normalization of relationships with China, at least how he constructed them in the 90s and 2000s. Mostly, I would definitely say under Bill Clinton, the most for sure. But yeah, I think it mostly connects culturally, and Trump also just talks about a lot of issues that culturally connect to union workers, and I'd say even for farmers too, because I don't think Trump's policies are very pure, pro farmer, especially with the way he needs to bail them out. He seems to not understand soybean farmers at all, or their issues with the reciprocal tariffs from China. But farmers also connect culturally to a more Christian, and when I say Christian, I mean independent Christian. So, and this is one big issue that liberals don't have, or that liberals do have with Christianity as well. The Catholic Church and other churches that are more, I guess you could say, establishment focused and more leadership focused, like in terms of like what is the governmental structure of it, they are far different from the independent churches you'll see all throughout Indiana and Iowa and Ohio, and even some in Pennsylvania. Those like independent churches are going to be far more in farming communities and far more, I guess you could say, fundamentalist in a non-negative term. I mean, some areas may be negative, but more fundamentalist and more attached to the religion in a different way than I guess you could say like the normal what Christians will see as the Catholic Church and and all that kind of stuff, like more than they would be.
I certainly think that there's truth to the fact that there's crossover. So cultural values sometimes could supersede traditional, what we thought that the parties represented. But I think that even if we set that aside, I think that there is a belief that sort of the NAFTA type policies that started under Bill Clinton and then policies that we've seen, basically, I would argue from both the Republican and Democrat Party, even if they supported, quote, unions, the Democratic Party, I think that a lot of workers, including many union workers in particular fields, feel that neither party has really had interest of the middle class working people. And the data does certainly back up that the middle class is eroding in this country, that wealth disparity, regardless of what president has been in his office, has been increasing. And one of the things I say all the time, we could argue about whether or not Trump's policies would be good for manufacturing, the middle class, labor, etc. But what's undoubtable is there are millions of people that find themselves in that category or were previously in that category and feel they've been left behind, that believe Trump's the best option for that. And I think the big reason for that is the bar is so low. I think that labor in this country feels that no one has represented them for like decades. They feel that someone at least talking to them and saying, hey, we love blue collar work. You're the backbone of the country, like Trump did, and going around and talking to these people. And even stories you hear of Trump before he was like into politics, where he'd be like, I'd be shooting the breeze with the construction workers and things like that. None of that matters in an objective scale of would your policies be good for labor, but certainly it seems to speak to people in labor that this guy at least looks at us as equals or as important and doesn't look at us as like people that like, haha, learn to code when you lose your jobs. We don't care. You're beneath us. We're academics. We're in ivory towers. You're stupid people that are forced to work with your hands, and you should just shut up and accept your place and your dwindling status in this country. So I think for those reasons, yeah, you're certainly right that there's these cultural, like Christianity, other cultural values, but I think that the bar is so low. And I think this is an area that I could reach across with people that are more progressive, maybe of a Bernie Sanders-esque vibe, where it's like, when they talk about the disenfranchised American worker, I agree. I may disagree on what the solutions will be to help them, but I don't think that either political party prior to Bernie or Trump had anyone that was serious at the national contention level for president that really spoke to the working class. And as a result, we've seen the promises that were given post-NAFTA and China entering the WTO were lies or they were failures. We have not seen robust growth for people that used to have these great manufacturing jobs. We've seen them slip into a lower and lower class, and increasingly the middle class becoming a dream that's unreachable, particularly from working class young people now, which many, even owning a home, seems impossible. As such, that's why I'm sort of in favor of at least Trump trying something. Because I think had Kamala won, it would have been a status quo of what Joe Biden was doing and what Obama did previously and what George W. Bush did, which would have just been to continue to drive up the debt, continue to print money, continue to have inflation, and for manufacturing that we would rely on for many things in this country, like steel manufacturing or medicine manufacturing, to go to places that are geopolitical rivals. And inevitably, if nothing changes, the United States will falter not only from its top spot in the world, but instead of becoming a multipolar world, we'll quickly find ourselves in the hands of our adversary, like we saw with COVID with China, where all of a sudden we're reliant on China for PPE, we're reliant on China for simple pharmaceuticals to treat things like colds. Hell, we're reliant on China for ammunition manufacturing and steel manufacturing that would be necessary if needed to fight a hot war with them. So I think even if you disagree, and I don't know that Trump's policy will be a success or not, but at least it's a radical departure from the status quo, which needs to happen. Because if we continue down this path, the American worker's screwed.
Well, what I would say about Democrats, and this is another cultural thing, but most Democrats that are in leadership are from New York or California. You know, all the TikTok boys are from California or New York. The Pod Save America guys are from like Massachusetts or New York or California. They're all from those like 3 states, and they really don't know how to connect. And when Biden says learn how to code, the response probably should be, there's really nice plants in West Virginia now. There really are, like battery plants, and if we want to build or make semiconductors here or do more precious metals or whatever we can move to America with the CHIPS Act. It should be we're going to replace this with this. We have a lot of coal mines, a lot of sinkholes that go down. If you drop a rock down, it'll take 20 seconds before you hear a bump. Down the sinkhole from the mines. We have all this polluted water. We can replace these old torn down mine shafts with these companies that are in West Virginia. And my thing with trade deals, if we're already in this position, the big thing is our country is getting richer. America is rich. So acting like, these other countries are screwing us off. The other countries are not screwing us off. If anything, we screwed other countries off to get to where we are. But if we have this wealth and people are mad about it, the issue is not really, the practice. It's who has all the wealth, who has all the money. And if you have this machine of global trade being so productive and efficient, I would say if we're moving manufacturing back, then use that wealth, use our military and our influence that we have as the world reserve currency, use all that power to first build the factories we need, to build that manufacturing here, use it to subsidize companies here that'll be taking a loss in order to fund these changes. And I think that'd be an effective strategy. But like these tariffs right now, China's eating. China's eating right now. China's getting deals with Europe they never thought would be possible, dropping tariffs for EVs and everything. China's gonna be making. China definitely right now is emboldening and strengthening their relationships with all these countries we don't want them to be connected to. We're doing it through terrible policy. They're saying they're gonna organize a trade deal with 50 million countries in like a week after it took them like 2 years for Canada and Mexico with the USMCA, which I think most of us would agree it was a decent way to build on NAFTA. But it's just totally everything they're saying right now makes zero sense. It's not tethered in reality. The numbers are insane. No company's going to invest in America when the tariffs are changing constantly. And it's also the biggest tax increase in pretty much American history, but definitely in the past like 80 years for working class people. It's the biggest tax increase. And it's being done through central planning like Maoism or communism, with the president just going, taxes up, taxes down. And the president should not be doing or leveraging taxes in that way. And I also don't want working class people to pay for this initiative. Like I said, the rich people benefit from the trade deals. The rich people got tons of money from the trade deals. They should pay for our way out of it, not the working class people. The working class people should not pay for our way out of the trade deals.
But they're not going to, right? Like, so right now what you're seeing, the reaction to the stock market, it's basically, although it is true that the stock market, I think people are insane that you see that are Trump supporters like, burn it all down. I know people that are invested in the stock market, so leave it collapse. It's not that simple. If the stock market collapse, there'll be pain suffered for everyone. Like that's
retirement.
I don't think I need to explain that to you. Like we would agree on that, I think. Now, certainly it will disproportionately hurt people that own more stocks, which disproportionately is the top 10%, in fact, even the top 1%. So in effect, the people right now in the immediacy that are affecting the brunt will be people that are in that top percent. The problem is even any solution that you could come up with that anyone who seriously, I'll start with this. How about this? Can you name me the national level politician that has suggested a plan that you think would be good to affect this wealth disparity and the hollowing out of the middle class in our country?
Well, I would say the CHIPS Act.
All right, everyone. This is a very financial specific political talk, and that's not really my arena, but I'm learning some stuff. So We're going to watch this
Is the best example of a policy that was bipartisan, and the manufacturing increase in
for a little
America for
longer.
total manufacturing spending peaked under the last month of Biden. It's now declining for the first time in 4 years. It's
But
declining now under Trump.
First off, the CHIPS Act, I haven't done my research on this recently, but when the CHIPS Act passed and like the following year after that, many of the factories that we told came here and were investing were actually factories that were already planned, and you had plans to come before that. Now, there have been a few since then that have agreed to come about, but I think at most it's like 50,000 manufacturing jobs that they're trying to claim that perhaps, and that's a very generous number. The idea, like the jobs that were being created under the Biden administration were predominantly government jobs and jobs that were going to people that were foreign born. And most of these numbers are manipulated anyways. But even if you accept the numbers, real wage growth was stagnant under the Biden administration, absolutely stagnant. So if I ask you, like, well, can you name me the national politicians that had policies that were pro-worker? If it was so good, why did workers, in fact, union members, for the first time in a long time, start to break towards Trump? The truth is because the data is manipulated and the economy wasn't the rosy outlook that we were told. The truth is the Biden administration and by extension Kamala Harris weren't going to do anything that would change the fortunes. And in addition to that, any problems you have against free marketism with tariffs, it seems that massive subsidies start to fall into very similar problems. And the other thing I'll say real quick, when it comes to market manipulation, et cetera, I'm sort of with you. I think that tariffs as a negotiating strategy isn't a bad thing, right? But I don't want to see them implanted long term. I would rather see more of a free trade type system. I think there are other things we could do like deregulation, et cetera, that will make the United States more favorable. However, what I will say is that you can't really, if Europe decides, well, we're going to go with China instead of the United States because we find China unpredictable, China's response is to devalue their currency. They constantly do this sort of manipulation. So if the idea is, well, we're going to go with China because they're more stable, I don't think that'll be the case. I think what you're likely to find, and I could be wrong, I don't have a lot of confidence in this. I think that because anytime you're trying to do a radical shake up of the status quo, the people that are on the top of the status quo, which are the wealthiest, not just in the United States, but in the world, are going to have disproportional power because of our massive government system, which is another reason to have a smaller government instead of a bigger one. And they're going to wield that power to try to make sure that the status quo doesn't radically change. And so I think anytime you have a shakeup of that, whether it be this or if it was a Bernie Sanders-esque plan that's like, we're going to massively tax the rich, you would see the stock market declining in that world as well. So we'll see how this plays out. But my guess is that you'll see European countries will come to a negotiating table with the United States. I don't know that the deals would be as favorable as Trump would have his supporters believing, but I don't think that it'll be a mass exodus to China. If anything, the mass exodus to China probably has more to do with the fact that we've had a disastrous war in Ukraine that we've propped up. Now even the New York Times is admitting that the United States was proffering the entire time, even though Biden's administration lied about it, which drove the BRICS Union and drove all of these, quote, hostile countries into embracing China. And if anything, that gives them the leverage necessary to continue to do so in the future.
So, I should have wrote down a couple points, but when it comes to the middle class in America, the worst thing you can do is kill anything that starts with Medicaid or Medicare, or just attack the stability of Social Security and the ability for Social Security and the VA to serve people. Those are huge stimulus to the economy, and it serves people very well. In rural areas, rural hospitals will shut down like crazy if they make any cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. And I know the budget framework talks about 880 billion over a certain amount of time, but Republicans wanting to cut that spending at the same time doing tariffs. We can't go away from the fact that these tariffs are a tax on the working class in America. We're cutting taxes for the wealthy and we're taxing working people instead. We're giving a 10% across the board tariff on every country, and 25% on Canada and Mexico still, and then 145%, I think it is now. It keeps going up every day on China. And the fact is, if our president is going to, if we're not going to have laws in America, if we're not going to have anti-corruption measures in America, if the president's going to be switching tariff policy like this so rapidly and attacking Canada and Mexico, which is vital to our national security to be friends with them if we do get into a war with China, by chance, and also attacking Europe, saying the EU was formed to screw over America. That's the worst way possible for American stability to be in any solid position. And I agree, like the fact so many countries will go more towards China is a bad thing, but I think it speaks even worse to where America is viewed right now in the global system, and these tariffs are going to end manufacturing jobs. It's going to shut down factories. Google shutting down, or Microsoft is, I think in Microsoft or Google, they announced 2 of their data centers they're going to build are going to be canceled. In Erie, that recycling plant is now canceled. That was going to be, I think it was like $300 million recycling plant. That was going to provide a decent number of jobs as well. So this manufacturing is going to be shut down because the input costs into our country is going to be so increased by these tariffs. There's so many small businesses reeling right now. That 10% can be make it or break it for small businesses. And we saw during COVID, we saw during the financial crisis in 2008, we saw during every financial crisis, pretty much except the Great Depression, because we had to restructure our system to tax the wealthy a lot more. Every time there's a financial crisis, you said that Wall Street suffers. Wall Street always looks like they suffer first. But what happens is there's a huge market crash, then they lay everyone off, everyone loses their jobs, everyone loses their housing, and then after the market crash, the wealthy become even wealthier. The biggest jumps in the wealth of the top 1% came in 2008 and 2020. Anyone could look up the amount of wealth the top 1% gained in 2020. Although we said small businesses were gonna, suffer, and Wall Street is gonna suffer with the stock market, just like it is now. Whenever the economy fragments, they have enough money to withstand it. They can just move assets around, let small businesses die, and then pick up the pieces and get even stronger.
Well, the problem is everything you said would also be true under the plan that you're suggesting. So the people that say, well, you know what the solution is? Tax the billionaires more. That also will be a tax on the working class. Tariffs isn't a direct tax. It is basically a consumer level tax, because what happens is the manufacturers of the goods will pass that on to the actual consumers. Now, the truth is it's not a one-to-one thing. For example, a 10% tariff won't directly lead to a 10% increase in a product's price. What's likely to happen is the foreign producers that will be the countries that are tariffed will eat a small percentage of that, and then the producers in the United States that are reliant on those products will also probably eat a small percentage. So let's say it was each 1%, then that causes an 8% increase in the product in the United States. Not good for the United States consumer, I get that. But 2 things. One, a radical increase on tax on the wealthy also won't be eaten by the wealthy. You've just given the rationale, no matter what's ever done, the rich will come out on top. So if we have lockdowns for COVID, it'll always end up benefiting the rich, which is exactly what happened, which the people that you support, like Joe Biden, etc., were vehemently in favor of that policy.
Hell yeah.
In fact, right, you're for that? You were for
And so was
lockdowns?
Donald Trump. So was Donald Trump.
Now, Donald Trump, to his great shame, and one of the biggest criticisms of him was he didn't, as president, order lockdowns, but he seemed to pay lip service to them. But regardless of what you think about it, the Democrats certainly were massively more in favor of lockdowns. And by the time Trump was ending his first term, were criticizing him for not embracing lockdowns and saying that his policies and his signaling was going to be a disaster for this country. In fact, they took states that had great governors like Ron DeSantis, who actually I would have chosen before Trump. They looked at that and said that it was going to be the forever purge, and that there were going to be bodies piling up in the street in Florida. I just want to be clear before we get further in this economic discussion. You favored lockdowns.
For some duration. When conservatives talk like we couldn't leave our houses or anything, I mean, all of us were at the parks, we were having a good old time outside, and the hospitals were filled up in much of the country. It's hard to make policy at every individual level in local markets, but nurses and doctors were suffering during this period, and for a few months for sure. And there was actual reason for that crash. There was an actual reason for that crash, by the way. This crash right now is just
No, there
Donald Trump
was a
being
reason for
being a
that
weenie.
crash, because the policies that people had that were disastrous, that didn't protect our health, instead intentionally sabotaged our economy, which we're still feeling the ramifications of today. That was
Not having a bolstered healthcare system really hurt America, but also just like in general, like the hospitals were filled up. If you got into a car crash and did not have COVID, your care was compromised. Like there were other issues with the lockdown.
So when you say the hospitals are filled up, in what way? Are you saying that like the emergency room beds were filled up? Or are you saying the ICU beds were filled up?
Yeah, there were doctors committing suicide because their hospitals were filled up and they were seeing patients die so rapidly. And then a car crash victim would come in and get COVID in the doctor. Like this all piled on top of each other. Those few months during the pandemic were pretty shitty. They were pretty bad. And I think we forget that, but I'm just saying, like, when it comes to that crash, there was an actual fundamental reason for doing that with the limitations of our healthcare system. Right now, the economic issues that are going to come down on small businesses here, if he keeps these tariffs on, these 10% tariffs, and the 145% tariffs or whatever, although China's going to ship through Vietnam probably, regardless. But if he keeps those, and it's not going to be for saving lives or any theory that has ever worked in human history. It's just going to be because Trump is, failed to study, economics.
Depending on the numbers you use, many of the official studies actually show that ICU bed usage throughout much of COVID was lower than on average. And for every story you talk about a doctor committed suicide because of the work burden they were having, let me tell you an anecdotal story. So in Clarion County and in Jefferson County, which are the two counties that one I live in and one that's closest to me. I think it was the Butler Health Network was some of these hospitals. They all went through the same network. They, during the pandemic, ended up laying off some 500 healthcare workers and nurses. You want to know why? Because the hospitals were empty. Because in places like Clarion and Jefferson, at one point, Jefferson County had a total of 0 cases of COVID up until that point. Now, my brother had horrible seizures where he would have grand mal seizures to the point where he shattered both of his collarbones at points. At one point, he has a seizure, and my mom.
Rob knows better than to just use anecdotes, right? I thought he was more. I could have sworn he was more reasonable on the whole COVID situation, but I guess he's kind of just towing the party line on that one.
Mom drives him out to Jefferson County, assumes he'll be there all night as he always
I like this Jola guy though. Whoever recommended that, thank you.
was. She pulls in, the hospital's completely empty. She goes in with my brother. They tell her she can't come in because of COVID, even though there's been 0 cases at that point in Jefferson County. Goes into the hospital. To her chagrin, within 2 hours, they released him because they were worried that at any moment there could be a significant rush and every hospital bed could fill up. And so therefore they had to send him home. He had a grand mal seizure on the 20-minute drive back home. As he was choking on the seatbelt, my mom tried to release him from the seatbelt. He fell out of the car on the side of the highway and broke his collarbone again. He was supposed to have brain surgery that was delayed because people's health was significantly impacted because of the fear of COVID, which ended up in most of the time during COVID, ICU beds weren't at the capacity of 100%, 95% that people are talking about. They ended up getting rid of a bunch of elective surgeries and things like that. But when we say elective, we're not talking like liposuction. We're talking about things like that, like brain surgery. So he had to have that put off for over a year. There was tons of people that had disparate health outcomes because they were afraid to go to the hospital or because they couldn't go to the hospital. And there had hospitals where they were laying off healthcare workers because there was no profitability because no one was showing up. The truth is, lockdowns did nothing whatsoever to help our health.
That's not
Despite
true
the
at
feeling-
all. The
Okay,
acute
so
hospital
give me the
mortality in the
proof.
emergency room. So I actually have a study from NIH about and I said the non-ICU patients. If you get into a car crash, for example, or if you have cancer or whatever, a non-COVID ICU patients had a 17% increase in mortality odds during the second wave of COVID, and 15% higher mortality odd in the ICU versus the first wave of COVID.
But
So
why?
like this hadn't because the hospital resources were strained. Not everywhere, so not everywhere in the world is
necessarily.
happening exactly at once.
Wait.
If you want to do city by city policy, you could.
It wasn't just they were strained. It was also that they were laying people off because many of the hospitals weren't strained, so there was less healthcare workers. And in addition to that, the hospitals were all singularly
Thought they were firing
focused
a lot
on
of people.
COVID.
Hold on.
And so if you
Hold
had-
on, you two. I thought they were firing a lot of people because they were refusing to comply with the mandates. I thought that was the reason.
Everyone's strapped down, constantly ready to go on COVID, and because of that,
I'm gonna look it
you're
up.
not prepared for someone coming in with a motorcycle wreck. Yeah, I guess their mortality go up. Nonetheless, that's a moving the goalpost. That doesn't answer the point that I was making, that the lockdowns didn't help us, right? Just
They
saying,
helped capacity. They did help capacity not be as overwhelmed.
okay, so give me an example. So then, how would we compare this? How would we find out if lockdown significantly saved lives? What are
So
some
like
of the ways that we would seek to
the
test
study
that?
I just brought up, where you can see that more people were dying during it. You're saying it's just because they were
That's
focused on COVID. That is true, they were focused on COVID, but they also, they have people there focused
That
on other
study
things as
doesn't
well.
prove
It
what
depends
you're
on the
saying.
area.
That
It
study
does.
doesn't
It depends
prove
on
what
the
you're
area.
saying. That study does not prove that lockdowns led to better health outcomes. So how would we
Okay.
seek to test that?
Okay,
Let me give you some
I really,
examples.
honestly, I'd rather talk about the 10% tax on all Americans because I don't really want to talk about COVID
wait,
with
this
you
is
guys.
interesting. One of the ways we would seek to
No,
test
because I
that.
fell into one of your traps. It's all about social issues. It's all about
What
social
does
issues.
this
Let's
have
get back
do
to
with the
actual
social
facts.
issue? No, wait
It's
a
about
second.
social
You
issues
just
because I said
said
the word
that COVID.
COVID. I said the
You
word
just
COVID.
said no.
It's my fault.
Wait. You're talking about managerial economies, and you talked about how COVID was something that significantly affected our economy. One of the arguments I have is the very people that are talking about the problem with Trump trying to manage our economy through tariffs actually managed it in a far more significant way for no benefit whatsoever for lockdowns. And now you're like, once you realize that you're not going to be able to defend that position, a position that you said you agreed with, that you were for lockdowns, now
No,
you
because
want
I
to be
don't.
like,
I don't
no, I want
want
to go
to.
back
I
to
actually don't
criticizing
want
the
to.
tariff
I really
position.
don't want to defend it because I could bring up numbers all day, but I'd rather just make up a story about the current economy and small businesses dying because I could bring up masks working and you'll be like, no, masks never worked at all for anything.
What does that have
It's
to
like,
do
well,
with what does
no,
that
I'm
have
just
to do with
saying
what we're
like.
talking about? mass.
Because
what does that have to do?
I could bring up any fact on this situation here, and I can't pin you down on it because I haven't spent years debating COVID. So I'd rather just go to the economic
I
issues
just
I do
asked you.
understand.
I just
I'll
asked
admit
you.
it right now. I fell into the COVID trap. I'd rather not talk about COVID. I'd
I
rather
just
talk about the
asked
current
you. I
economic
just asked
issues.
you hypothetically.
Down on it. I'll admit
you
it right
hypo-
now. I fell into the COVID trap.
We
I'd rather.
usually run at.
So I'd rather just go to
Oh.
the economic
I
issues I
just
do
asked you.
understand.
I just
I'll
asked
admit
you.
it right now. I fell into the COVID trap. I'd rather not talk about COVID. I'd
I
rather
just
talk about the
asked
current
you. I
economic
just
issues.
asked you hypothetically how we would determine
I
whether
don't
or
know
not a
what that
medical
is
policy was
supposed
effective or
to
not.
Because you can see
mean.
more refrigerator trucks in different cities. You can see that the capacities are overwhelmed. You can see the higher suicidality rate from doctors to see the systems are overwhelmed.
Okay, I'll give the answer and you tell me if you find this sufficient. We would take places that did significant lockdowns and we would compare them to places that didn't do significant lockdowns.
No, because you have to test for area, geographics. You have to test for a multitude of factors then. Because in cities you live everyone next to each other. So in Florida, everyone has their fancy retirement home and perfect medical service because they're all rich down there because they're retiring down there. That could be a different circumstance than if you're in New York City, you need to interact with 50 million people every day. So there's a bunch of different factors. I'd rather not get into it because it's too complicated for the conservative mind to comprehend.
So then your argument will be we can never compare two places because there are variables. So in which way
No, we
would you
can
test
compare it. Just
and
not.
I'll tell you the answer.
I'm saying
I'll
for
give
this
you-
conversation, we would need to actually get a debate ready for it, and both of us actually look through information for this. Because right now we're just
Right,
throwing back anecdotes at each other.
We did look through the. I've looked through the information. I'm surprised as someone who fit. Would you agree that the lockdowns massively impacted our economy in a negative way?
Yeah, but I think that's not at all the key feature of the COVID
Okay,
lockdowns.
and would you also agree that lockdowns were a severe imposition on sort of the rights of people in this country?
Which lockdowns were?
In general, the lockdowns that we saw.
And what lockdowns were they?
Okay, let's talk about in Pennsylvania. You live in Pennsylvania, right? You remember the vaunted red, yellow, green system?
I remember having a law passed so we can get alcohol delivered or have alcohol to take
Okay,
out.
so for example, Governor Wolf at the time said that counties would be approached by a county system. If you were red, I think in those counties you could only have gatherings of 10 people. Non-essential businesses were closed, so restaurants, bars, things of that nature. Once that progressed to yellow, some of those places were allowed open, but there were time frames that they were allowed. So for example, I think they were only allowed to open maybe 11 a.m. if I remember. The capacity was severely limited. There had to be a certain amount of food sales that were going with any alcohol sales. Still certain businesses weren't allowed to be open, etc. And then with green, it was back to normal. It's interesting how the people that champion these sorts of policies forget that they occurred.
Now. It's extremely easy to say that now when
but
you
I was
did not
saying
have
it
to
then.
make decisions. I'm just saying you never had to make decisions in this situation. You weren't there at the time. We could use it in 2025
What evidence?
and use it
What
with
evidence?
hindsight. But I'm just saying,
How old are
and
you?
the
Just
evidence,
curious.
the
You're
evidence.
an adult, correct?
Yes, I am 25.
You're over like 20.
The
So-
evidence that you would need for that is something we know now, but when this crisis was rolling out, we did not have all this information. We did not have any preventative measures like vaccines. We did not have this out yet when these things were being rolled out. If you want to make the argument that once vaccines were
All right, so I just looked it up a lot, like several different sources, and all I'm getting is that most of the hospitals in the United States were over capacity, and basically most of the things Joel is saying is correct. And Rob's little anecdote about his county is kind of irrelevant to the overall economic impact on the United States.
out that they should have toned it down quicker, then I could agree with that. But when we're talking about the initial lockdowns, when we were still finding out information, I think it's just like a 5-year-old logic to say we know better now. Of course we know better now.
Okay, first off, I knew better then, right? Secondly,
Yeah,
if
because
Trump
you
came
make
out,
predictions off of no evidence.
no,
or
that's
no
not
information.
true. I had plenty of
Oh,
evidence, but
shots
we'll get into
fired.
this in
There's a
second.
reason America had higher death rates than every other developed country.
If Trump came out tomorrow and said, because of massive violence that we're seeing in inner cities,
Okay, so we're done being friendly.
This country, non-essential businesses
like it.
closed, et cetera, would you have a problem with that?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly why. So like
Sure.
COVID, for example, became the #1 cause of death in America for like 4 months, and no one even cares about it. It became the #1 cause of death in America, above heart disease, and the numbers remain stable for those as well. And like that's a huge difference in what was happening before COVID versus now. There's no massive crime wave you could find from immigration when Trump is calling it a national emergency because he is just having his permanent brain damage. I think he fell more times than Biden did with how he's talking. But like when we're talking about the actual differences now that would cause a national emergency, yeah, there's nothing you can find in any crime data anywhere to justify
What's the
a
number
massive
one cause of
shutdown or
death for
insurrection
people?
act.
What's the number one cause of death of people under 18?
Playing video games.
I don't believe you.
It makes you violent to play video games. Trump said that.
Okay,
I
then
believe
that
him.
would be a causality that the end result would be
I'm following
Violence?
Trump. I'm also following Trump's red flag laws where he thinks he should be able
I'm
to take your
asking
gun.
you. I'm like, if you don't want to answer the question because you don't think that it works for you to just have an
I
honest
am answering the
conversation, you
question.
could
I am
just
answering the question.
So your serious answer to the number one cause of death for young people in this country is video games.
Because they play video games and get violent.
Okay, so then, but you said the cause of death is video games.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's debate that. Can you show me your proof? I'd like to see the study that says that.
I know someone that played a video game once and they did a crime. It was really bad.
Okay, it sounds to me like you're unserious about the conversation because you know you're not in a defensible position. That's what it sounds like. And
What are we
it
talking
sounds
Is
like I
that
would do
what
a
it
better
sounds
job
like?
of sort of arguing your position because I'm approaching it in a serious way as opposed to you. So, for example, the reason you would have a problem, Trump could easily say, well, the number one cause of death is gun violence for people under the age of 18, and therefore we're going to have lockdowns in these inner cities because of gun violence until we get those numbers down. Now, you would be against that, and the reason you would be against it is you would say, even if those numbers that he's citing are accurate, there is no proof that these lockdowns would significantly curb that violence, or even if it would, there's no proof that something that egregious that will harm people's rights, harm economic futures, harm people's mental health in other
We
ways.
did have Italy. We already knew what was going to happen with the COVID.
Nonetheless,
situation.
I'll finish my
Italy
point,
wishes
right?
they had lockdowns. Italy wishes they had the ability to see what we saw, and we still messed up.
There is no evidence that those lockdowns.
Oh, there was evidence. There was evidence. Oh, by the way, if there was gun violence enough to fill up every ER in America to where you can't have anyone in there, yeah, 100%, I would be okay with the shutdown.
So now your claim is every ER in America was filled up because of COVID.
Yes, every ER. Completely
Yeah,
full.
that's a lie. Remember when we heard claims like this were made in New York City and we sent that ship there and then it sat there empty because it turns out the boisterous claims were a lie? As even the governor has now admitted that it was a huge mistake to do these lockdowns. But you're still defending them. I like that. Now, the point that I was trying to make is, would we not agree that...
Okay, I've heard every COVID debate that has ever existed. We are going to move on to something else. Jola seems nice, though. We'll keep an eye on him. We'll see if he does anything a little interesting in the future. What else did we have? We also had someone in chat wanted me to check out Black Pigeon Speaks. So we're gonna watch his video. He made a video on the crowdfunding war that's going on with the lady and that kid that killed that other kid. And that lady that used a slur in the park. So we'll watch that. I found a couple of his videos. They're pretty short. But yeah, this is gonna be Black Pigeon Speaks. I don't know who this is, but here we go. Someone in chat requested that I check him out. So who knows? My chat could go either way.
We're causing half of the issues in the pond. What should we do with those 13 fish?
You gotta eat them.
Hold on. All right, let's see.
Let's say there was 100 fish in a pond, and 13 of those fish were causing half of the issues in the pond. What should we do with those 13 fish?
I don't know.
You gotta eat them.
Oh, I know what they're doing.
Kill them and eat them.
We should kill the 13 fish?
Kill them and eat them. Kill them. Kill them.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be looking at a new development in what one could call a proxy war of crowdfunding campaigns.
I think I know why they wanted me to react to this guy.
Lines that have laid at the very fabric of American society since even before.
Because that was a very rage baity reel there. I think I know what he was referring to.
The inception of the Republic. Two viral stories I'm sure most of you are familiar with. A teen accused of murder and a woman caught using a racial slur. Well, these stories are exposing the divides within the country and
yeah, I gotta be honest, I think it's absurd that either of those people are getting crowdfunds. Why are we just on this weird video of these two girls? Why is this?
Social cohesion. Even if
he's a Rumble guy. Okay, so he's a conservative. So this is gonna be rage bait.
Sorry for the brief interruption, but I'd like to draw your attention to some cool new.
Nah.
On April the 2nd, 2025, 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony, a black teen, allegedly stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf, a white teen, at a Texas track meet.
Right.
Anthony claimed self-defense,
and that was bad.
But the case has obviously sparked outrage, with his family launching a Give, Send, Go campaign that has raised, as of this video's production, $516,000, with the goal now being bumped up to $600,000. The funds, initially for legal defense, are also reportedly covering a new home, security, and living expenses, among other things, moves that have fueled accusations of profiting off of the tragedy.
I mean, yeah, this is shitty. You shouldn't be able to profit like that. That's bad.
The rhetoric on X and in fundraiser comments, well, they point to underlying rage and seething resentment. Many see Anthony's act, regardless of the facts, as a stand against a system they view as inherently anti-Black. This isn't universal, of course, but it is loud, and it does suggest a shift, at least publicly, away from seeking Martin Luther King-style equality to openly embracing retribution, where white victims like Austin Metcalf become collateral damage in the broader fight. Comments on the fundraiser are replete in celebrating the act, with racial undertones that suggest an ever-present resentment. And it should be clear that this is not just about legal support, but it is about becoming a symbol of defiance, where a murder suspect is elevated to the cause célèbre. And then there is Shiloh Hendricks, a white woman who went viral just the last couple of days for using the N-word at a 5-year-old Black child, allegedly over rummaging through her child's diaper bag.
Yeah, I mean, like, just yell at the kid. You don't really have to, like, get all slurry about it. Like, just yell at the kid.
Obviously not the best look, yet she has also launched a Give, Send, Go campaign titled Help Me Protect My Family, raising...
Last I heard, she made more money, which is... It's all wild. I don't even know, like, which is more wild, honestly. It's all just... It's fucking wild.
Production of this video,
like, are we really... Is this what we're doing right now?
And rising fast,
actually,
primarily from white donors. Similarly to the Anthony fundraiser, this is about a segment of white America rallying behind someone who has finally had enough of scraping and apologizing, and has, as many have stated on social media...
Why does she have a Burger King crown on? What? I must be missing a meme.
Just had enough of antisocial behavior. What's clear is that after decades of fear of being labeled racist, the social pendulum for white America is swinging toward no longer caring about such accusations to outright defiance against said accusations.
No, we're not doing that. You're getting called a slur.
Meanwhile, Shiloh Hendricks' campaign reveals a
no.
parallel trend among some white Americans. Her supporters aren't just defending her right to speak, they're funding her as a middle finger to what they see as the overreach of establishment ideals, as well as double standards that have silenced anyone that speaks up on issues that have been made forbidden through significant social, professional, and economic penalties. And in what should be considered and understood to be a seismic shift, this reflects a broader rejection of white guilt, which once fueled support for BLM and racial reconciliation in the country. However, data from 2024 Gallup polls suggests that white Americans' concern about systemic racism has dropped 15% since 2020. The fear of being called racist, which once shaped public discourse, is fading. Instead, it's a defiant embrace of figures like Hendricks, who symbolize resistance to established norms that are seen as being applied in a grossly
all the comments on both of these crowdfunders are unhinged.
Standard fashion. And these cases aren't isolated. They're symptoms of a society, once again, as American society has always been, one that is fracturing along racial lines. 5 years ago, BLM's at times fiery but mostly peaceful demonstrations were very much assisted.
This is probably correct. If these two things didn't happen at the exact same time, I don't think many people would have donated to, well, I mean, some people still would have, but I don't think as many people would have donated to the Shiloh Hendricks ladies crowdfunder.
and amplified in reach by white guilt. Today, that guilt is, for many, evaporating, replaced by resentment on both sides. Black communities feel betrayed by a system they do not trust, fueling support for figures like Anthony, while white communities, feeling vilified, are rejecting the shame that once moderated racial discourse and are now
they it made her famous, all right.
rallying behind figures like Hendrix. Supporting Carmelo Anthony, accused of murder, and Shiloh Hendrix, who is accused of using racial slurs, shows just how unraveled the nation is, or maybe always has been. But let's not equate, you cannot equate these two actions, as many of the advocates posing as so-called journalists in the controlled media are attempting to do. Taking a life is a permanent, irreplaceable loss of a human being. A slur, however nasty, are just words. But I think you know which side big tech, the media, and the establishment will take, regardless. So, what do you think about this situation? Please keep it civil, but give me your ideas and opinions in the comment section below. Also, if you like the video, please remember.
It's all just crazy. Get off the internet, people. I mean, you can go on the internet a little bit, but jeez. Touch grass once in a while. All right, he had one other video that had an interesting title. We'll watch this one too.
While the entire edifice of woke has never been popular with the vast majority of people anywhere in the Western world, unlike in the United States, the institutions in Canada, Europe, and the United Kingdom have yet to get the message, and they press on. Presently, I'm back in London, and this is a country gone completely insane. It's a country where the Justice Secretary is calling for new guidelines for judges to consider if a defendant's someone of an ethnic, cultural, or faith minority, and if so, they would receive preferential treatment and lower sentences than a straight, white, Christian man. And no, I'm not joking. But it would appear that corporations understand what the governments in the West, excluding the United States, and much of the controlled and dying, I should say, media do not. In that, woke and its worldview has never been popular. In that, and so much so that Disney is refusing to hold a premiere of its new live-action adaptation of Snow White in the UK over fears of a backlash over woking it up.
Well, yeah, but didn't literally everybody hate that movie? Like every single person, except for her, the actress. And she hated the story. So literally everybody hated that movie.
And it's not just Snow White. The Matrix Resurrections, Terminator, Dark Fate, the new Ghostbusters,
Matrix
all
Resurrections.
were woke failures. In video games, it's not much different. Flop after flop after flop. Last year, Sony's Concord, which cost an estimated $200 to $400 million to produce, was considered a woke bridge too far,
Jeez.
and the shooter was taken offline just 2 weeks after its release due to poor reception and a lack of player interest. This year it looks like Ubisoft, just off a bad year with Star Wars Outlaws, another woke game. After having pushed forward the
Outlaws was
release date
just
of
a bad
Assassin's
game.
Creed Shadow twice, is looking at another incoming flop. And why is that? Well, inserting its woke agenda via the inclusion of an African samurai into feudal Japan
Yeah, Japan was not happy about this one. They did not like this at all.
might have something to do with it. It would seem that when money is involved, the corporations, unlike governments outside the US, are waking up after much suffering, and more on that later. But it's more than this. The woke-driven cultural war, well, it wasn't popular with anyone because it demanded everyone be miserable. Nothing could be funny. Everything was political. Food was about racial consciousness. Clothing was about cultural appropriation. Even exercise and health was lamented as being a breeding ground for extremists and the far right, and being a far right trap. If being healthy is a right-wing trap, I'll take it, as I've seen the benefits from today's sponsor, Black
Right.
Forest Supplements.
Yeah. No
In the
thanks.
Dr. Huberman,
No thanks.
naturally, it too,
Nah.
but was woke. Well, how it collapsed so suddenly. It had the backing of almost every institution, big tech being one of the strongest supporters, who
Well, it's like gamers just want to play good games. And those games were bad. Like, they weren't good games. Even Avowed was, like, not that great if you compare it to, like, 20-year-old games. Like, what's probably, like, one of the most popular games out right now is a 20-year-old game. Oblivion. Like, some people are saying it's their choice for game of the year, which might be a stretch because it's not really a game of this year. But still, it's very interesting.
who literally strangled anyone off social media platforms with algorithmic oblivion to outright bans who disagreed with the agenda, while simultaneously astroturfing the most ludicrous of woke voices. Think BreadTube. Of course, there is the obvious backlash fatigue. After 10 years of corporations, media, and institutions shoving the woke agenda down the population's throat, whether they wanted it or not, well, most are fed up with the performative nonsense, cancel culture, speech policing, and the inability of the ideology to comport with reality. Woke inevitably became a punchline and was tripping all over itself. Woke's central focus of victimhood and identity couldn't then square the circle of, but we're all equal, right? Moreover, the random Mexican or black guy on the street has zero connection to trans issues or activism. Yet leftists tried to group them all as being an oppressed bloc and to rally them against the evil, oppressive white man. But those stark differences eventually proved too big to bridge. Put simply, the whole ideology is a mess. Of course, woke is not dead. Academia, rabid, fanatical activists, some PR and media types still cling to it. But by abandoning the issues of normal people and those issues that they face, and exclusively focusing on wedge issues like transgenderism and who
Yeah, a lot of these things seem big, and so the whole world tries to like orient to them, but it's really just like a few people making a giant mess out in the street and yelling a lot. So the news goes and they get real close. So it looks like there's like the whole world is there protesting. It's really not that many people like in proportion to the rest of the planet. And then it gets on all the news and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, everyone cares so much about this thing." In reality, not really that many people care. They just don't. And that's why when you inject it into movies and video games and stuff like that, they flop. I mean, it makes sense.
was winning the oppression Olympics, it was never going to be a widely held belief system. Most importantly, you can't change human nature. It resists suppression. The Soviet Union, nearing a century of existence, couldn't erase money or property despite 3 generations of indoctrination. Black markets thrived, and in Moscow, people eagerly swapped goods for US dollars from tourists. Liberal leftist capitalism, a global cultural political juggernaut, could have dominated entirely, but it stumbled when it embraced cultural relativism, and it's this flawed belief system, adopted wholesale by the left, that marked its decline.
Can we just do regular liberal capitalism? Does it have to be like leftist liberal? Like, why? We gotta like really separate those two things for once. Like, we are not the same. Leftists don't think we're the same. Why do we keep trying to be like, "Oh no, you're part of the team"? No, they're not. They're not part of the team. They're not on the team. Look at that. They're not on the team. It's not the same team.
decline. It stifles patriotism, it kills national identity, and halts social progress by rejecting moral or qualitative standards, turning everything into a post truth farce. It's also very inconsistently applied. It relentlessly critiques the familiar while shielding the foreign, no matter how regressive, from judgment. And what's clear is that if you want to win a cultural war, it demands conviction and vigor, not self deprecating misery. Yet progressive leftists who are mired in confusion and despair, well, they suffer under cultural relativism's weight. But most importantly is, and that is the focus of this video, is that woke is a boutique ideology for champagne socialists. I actually made several videos explaining this, obviously.
Yeah. And Hassan enters the chat.
Long ago removed by YouTube, whose employees remain committed fanatics to the cause. But that aside, one of those videos, uploaded on the 31st of March 2020, explained why. Entitled The End of Woke and the Politics of Prosperity, it's been archived on Odyssey. A link to it is in the description. But basically, I explained then what has happened in the intervening years. Another way to look at this is think of woke culture as a plant that grew fast in fertile soil. And when the soil dried up,
What is this
it's
lady's face
struggling.
for?
Think back to the 2010s. It was a time with near zero interest rates and massive stimulus that created an economic boom, letting corporations fund woke initiatives like DEI and social justice campaigns as a luxury of the good times. By 2022, inflation soared to 7%, and this led to the tightening of budgets across multinational corporations. And companies like Google and Meta, for example, well, they then began cutting DEI roles. And as such, diversity hires dropped sharply. These companies are now prioritizing survival over systemic ideals. Now, with things like rent up 20%, eggs up 70% in the United States, and in the UK, where I am currently, energy bills have doubled. And of course, this has shifted everyday focus away from things like ideology to survival. In that, in a 2023 YouGov poll, well, it showed that 60% of Americans cared more about inflation than social issues. Put simply, economic excess once fueled woke extras like diversity training and ESG investing. But as funds dried up, a recent Economist poll showed that investors favored returns over morals, marking woke for what it is: a luxury good, fast losing appeal. Moreover, billionaires and megacorporations have also caught on that they can just give the middle finger to these activists with zero consequences. Musk blazed that trail with Twitter, proving that all of these different satellite woke movements are powerless without a steady cash IV from megacorporations who are now ditching the funding for them. In sum, economics didn't orchestrate woke's decline, but it did expose its reliance on flush times. When the money flowed, caring was easy. When the money stopped, people checked out, raising the question of cash flow versus conviction.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know if those two things are like super exactly related. But yeah. Let me see what's going on. Okay, so they started. All right, I'm gonna refill my drink here, and then we're gonna get into the main event. All right.
Problem solved.
Okay. Before we even actually start watching this, let's see if we know anybody. Nope. I thought he said this was going to be a special one. This just looks like a regular boring dating talk. But all right, you know what? F it. We'll watch this. It's a whatever week.
Conversation at hand. Consider sending a TTS text to speech message $200 and up triggers TTS. TTS is via Streamlabs only. There's a slight stream and moderation delay with the TTS. You can also
Well, first, this title, $1 million to date her. It's, maybe this lady, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this girl, I don't know. She shames cheap men, probably the same girl. Andrew Wilson, exclamation point. Yeah, that's Andrew. All right.
mute a microphone. You can pop a bottle of champagne, Bitcoin to kick my beer in Bitcoin.
Damn.
Yeah.
So they could kick me off the show for 10 grand. Huh?
Well, you're a special guest. I said normal guest. Normal guest. Percent. Cash App. Just follow in the every boys ever.com or they said, but the standard merch shop. Follow us on Instagram. Speaking of absolute tragedy, so we have a discord.gg, our stream schedule.
Come on. Can we just get to the point?
Happening.
I told Brian
somebody running 30 minutes late, and she came all the way from LA, and I had to turn her away. Chat, do you think that's fair? You think that's fair if you're going to be 30 minutes late to something? Better luck next time. You know, you got to show up on time. If we give a little leeway if you're 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes late. We'll accommodate it, but 30 minutes late, that's crazy. And
I've seen people walk in like halfway during the
because she was 30
halfway
minutes late.
through the show.
If I should have accommodated, or it's just like, hey.
Oh, this dude just has a whole entire new like standard every time he turns this fucking live on.
You're going to be 30 minutes late to a production. It is what it is. Anyways, with that said, without further ado, we're going to have the guests introduce themselves. So please,
about time.
Tell us your name, age, occupation, where you're from, and education. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Shannon. You can find me online at Shannon, SHANNON, Davy, DAVI, World, WORLD.
Thank you for the shameless plug. What? How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay.
I live in Los Angeles, and I have 4 small businesses. I'm mainly a content creator, and I run a marketing agency, and dabble in a few other things, pet sitting, stuff like that.
Okay. Any education?
Yes, I am college educated. I have my bachelor's.
In what?
Comedy, writing, and performance.
What?
Yeah, I think we
that's
talked
a
about this
degree.
last time. Yeah, that's a thing at Columbia College, Chicago. That's where I went to school.
Like, is it the same branch of that school in New York, Columbia?
No, this one's in
It's like a separate
Chicago.
It's not associated or affiliated with Columbia University.
No.
And the degree is comedy writing, is it?
And performance.
And performance. Okay. And it's a bachelor
Interesting.
of art?
Yeah.
Or okay. And that's, do you have a minor or anything?
Do you think that was maybe a Bachelor of Science, Brian?
They could offer. Maybe.
I was minoring in like
Fucking college is
communications
crazy now.
and
That's true.
PR, but I didn't end up following through on that.
Wait, you used to work at NPR?
No. I was getting a minor in communications / PR.
Oh, PR. Okay.
Yeah, I started there as a musical theater major, and then I switched to comedy writing and performance.
Okay. And it's a university in Chicago, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, what about you?
Hey y'all, I'm Guidance. I'm 37 years old. I'm from Louisiana originally, but moved to California to be a professional chef. So I have a soul food restaurant here in Santa Barbara. I do a little TV and content creating, stuff like that. I'm also a pastor, so I have a pretty forward-thinking church here locally. And I'm currently getting my degree in culinary arts and marine biology here in Santa Barbara.
All right. And sorry, did you say your age? I might have missed that.
37.
37, got it. And so you're from where originally?
From Northeast Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Originally. That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
All right, nice. And do you already have a bachelor's degree, or you're working on it currently, or
Working on it. Yeah.
working on it?
that
Okay,
degree.
got it. All right. And you said you're a chef?
That's right. Yeah.
A chef?
Food chef.
You should have brought us some Cajun food.
Oh, my restaurant is right down the street.
Okay,
Order
all right,
anytime.
All
Shameless
right.
plug, Mama
All
Soul
right.
Food.
And you said you're a pastor?
That's right.
Okay, we'll come back to that after the introductions. We'll explore that. What about you?
Hi, I'm Natalie Stavola. I'm 37 from Los Angeles, and I am a career and dating coach for men.
Okay, and age. Oh, sorry, you said 37. I meant to say education.
Sure. Florida State University, bachelor's in psychology with a minor in propaganda and media.
Minor in propaganda and media, and it's a BA, right?
I actually did. It was a B. It's a BS, but when I graduated right before, they offered me the BA because I did take a lot of just random philosophy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. So they offered and they said from Connecticut, PR propaganda.
I'm a cosplayer and a streamer. I also am an accountant during the day, so we wear many hats. I'm 38 years old.
38. Yeah. And where are you from?
Currently, I'm living in Vegas. I moved around a lot. Navy brat, so.
Navy brat. Okay, yeah. Gotcha. And you said you do
play, so we call it cosplay.
Got it. Okay.
Of content on a different site, but it was really more just like more risque pictures. Nothing, it gave me an opportunity to talk to people on a more one-on-one level. So people that
Okay.
active.
Yeah, I did OF for 2 years.
Got it. Okay, and you were like top percent
I was in,
or something?
yeah, I was at one point in the top 1%.
Top 1%. Okay.
Same.
But you stopped.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're done though. You stopped.
Yeah, it's been like almost 2 years.
Okay. And have any other involvement in anything else like dancing, like stripping?
Oh, no.
No. That's the only sex work.
Yeah.
The OF stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
Did you say same?
Yeah, I used to do burlesque. I did OF for a little while back in Arkansas. So yeah.
Arkansas.
Nice.
You were in the top 1% too?
Yeah. Make a lot of cannabis content and adult.
Wait.
Guys, stop watching. Stop it. Stop it. Stop.
You combined cannabis content with burlesque?
With burlesque, with my spirituality. Cannabis is a big part of me, so even my church is centered around cannabis.
What the hell is burlesque?
Burlesque?
It's like a fancy word for, it's like a fancier...
Angel doesn't know what the word burlesque means. Bro.
Kind of vintage stripping.
Yeah.
Like Dita Von Teese.
Okay.
Vintage.
Who the hell is that?
Oh, no.
I don't know who that is.
Unfortunate.
I know. My degeneracy skills are not up to snuff. Who is...
She's like a famous burlesque dancer. Like the most at
I
this
feel like
moment,
this is
I
a
would
circle.
say.
I'm like, what is this dancing? And you're like, this chick is, well, who's that? The chick who did that type of dancing.
yeah.
So it's like...
I will say burlesque dancers consider it more of an art form. They're not just
Definitely.
working on stage.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a perform, it could.
Everyone considers whatever weird shit they do in art.
Whereas I guess like
Okay.
at a strip club,
It
like
wouldn't
the
mean
burlesque
anything.
dancers, they don't do like...
All right, let's
I'm
go.
offering a $500 reward for a comprehensive degeneracy cheat sheet. I'm not ever caught not knowing what these terms mean again.
Okay.
We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
Like the nature of your OF, were you doing solo content? Was it boy-girl content?
Solo, girl sometimes, mostly revolving around cannabis, honestly, yeah.
So you guys would be like...
What does that even mean?
Making out and there's cannabis in the background?
No, we're usually smoking a J.
Like, is there like a bag?
Because I didn't think that they allowed smoking on there.
You have to be very creative with cannabis content in general, but especially when you have off like OF platforms, like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, that would be just one step too far to let pot talk.
Right? How dare you?
Hi, my name's Gabby. I'm 18. I'm from Michigan. I currently work as a hostess at a steakhouse, and I completed high school and did some college.
Okay, and you did some college? What were you studying, or?
I just did art education, so it was mainly art-focused classes like drawing, studio art. I had an English class as well in another class, but I forgot what class that was.
All right. What about you?
Hi, my name is Wenyu. I'm from China. I'm 29 years old. I'm currently a visiting PhD student at the UCSB in linguistics.
All right, and
Oh boy, she has no idea what she just walked into.
Yeah,
okay.
From China.
Gotcha. And how close are you to getting your PhD? Have you done your dissertation or working on it?
Working on it.
Working on it. Okay.
I feel like I've seen the blonde chick in
Another
mug
1 year,
shots.
2 years.
Hopefully 1 or 2 years.
And but you said you started working on your dissertation.
Let me see if I can.
Does that have a title?
Where's like this?
Not yet.
Not yet. And you said you're studying linguistics.
See if I can find it.
Can you tell us a bit more? Is there a specific thing you're working on with that, or?
Yeah, I focus on like interactive forms such as interjections and discourse markers in Mandarin, like well or oh, like if I give English examples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like little items like that.
Give us an example in Mandarin.
For example,
None of these look like her.
would be like a filler.
But these aren't what I'm looking for. Where is it?
Okay, all right. And where are you from specifically in China?
From Shandong province. It's like 5 hours drive from Beijing.
From Beijing, got it.
From
Okay.
the north.
Got it, cool. What about you?
My name is Felicity. I'm 19 from Santa Barbara. I'm a full-time student majoring in business.
All right, welcome. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. I'm a political analyst, a political satirist, engage in debates and conversations all over the world. I'm happy to be with all of you here tonight.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to go around the table once more. So what's everybody's current relationship status? If you're single, how long have you been single?
I
And
think I
what's
found
the
her.
longest relationship you've ever been in? Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm in a relationship, and my longest relationship was around 2 years. I've been in this current relationship for a year and a month.
All
Okay.
Right, 1 year.
Okay. Oh, where's the? There was a picture on the. One sec. I found a better article.
How did you guys meet?
We met on Bumble.
Oh, what was your opening message?
I don't remember. We were actually, I know our first conversation was talking about Easter and that he was with his family. And
Okay, I found it. This chick is definitely the chick in the
a little
corner.
confused because on his profile, part of the reason I matched with him was because it said he was
SP
Jewish.
not live. What do you mean by SP? And I know I'm a little bit behind, but that's because I want to be able to skip boring stuff. I don't think I'm really that far behind, but 8 minutes. We can skip 8 minutes of boring stuff. But yeah. One sec. Let's find. Yeah, we're not live. We're like 8 minutes behind. Well, oh, I just backed it up a little more, but look at this. This is definitely her. And her name is Felicity. Yeah. This is definitely the same chick. It was in California. Yeah. Where's the name again? Yeah, Felicity Hughes. This is the same chick. That's hilarious. Oh yeah, this is gonna be some clown shit for sure.
I'm 19 from Santa Barbara. I'm a full-time student majoring in business.
All right, welcome. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. I'm a political analyst, a political satirist, engage in debates and conversations.
Yeah, we know.
Well, I'm in a relationship, and my longest relationship was around 2 years. I've been in this current relationship for
Make the
a year
critique of
and a
what? They're
month.
doing relationship status still.
All right, 1 year.
Ryan, if you want to
About
watch
1
it,
year. How did you guys meet?
you know it's
We met on Bumble.
live on whatever right now.
Oh, what was
like
your
you can
opening
watch it there too.
I don't remember. We were actually, I know our first conversation was talking about Easter and that he was with his family, and I was a little confused because on his profile, part of the reason I matched with him was because it said he was Jewish. So I was like, Easter, but I guess his family is half, so they celebrate both holidays, Passover and Easter. And so we chatted a little bit about that.
You were looking specifically for someone who's Jewish?
Yeah.
Is it because you're Jewish?
I'm Jewish,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And the 2-year relationship, who broke up with who?
It was kind of mutual, I would say.
Mutual.
Yeah.
Mutual.
All
Okay.
right. What about you?
Oh boy. Recently engaged, like in the last week. Have a wonderful fiance. Before this, I was married to a man twice, so 2 different marriages, both to
The same guy.
different guys.
Oh, different guys. Okay.
I'm
And I've
live.
been married to one other woman, and so I've got. I would consider myself a lesbian, but you know, at times I've been kind of bi. I'm
Shocker.
also right now monogamous, but prior to this engagement, I've lived a
Shocking.
polyamorous lifestyle. I preach that openly at my church. So, longest relationship would probably be to my ex-husband. We were together like 12 and a half years, something like that.
Let me just get a bit of clarification. So you were married twice, right? In terms of chronological timeline, you were married to a woman also, correct? So is that 3 marriages total?
And we're pretty close to
And then in
live. We're
terms of
only like
chronological
10 minutes
timeline, can you
off.
just tell us, like, was it the man, the woman?
Yeah,
or,
that is
like,
a
what was
woman,
the
and
order, I
apparently
guess?
she
So
apparently she owns a restaurant right down the street. So I guess Brian's just like walking down the street and yelling to get people on the show now.
man, then woman, and now again, woman again. So
Wait, so you've been married?
3 times.
Oh, but then you were in a relationship with another woman, and
You know the statistics on third marriages? It's like 80 or 90% failure rate.
now you're currently engaged to a woman.
That's the
Is
same woman. So
Okay, I
3
see.
marriages, and then this 4th one to my current fiance.
And you're engaged, and she's a woman.
Fourth
She's a woman,
marriage.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely 80 or 90%.
And then also, you said you're polyamorous.
I'm more monogamous now, recently.
Okay.
What is more
you know,
monogamous?
a struggle, I'll be honest. You know, she knows I'm honest about it. Monogamy is a struggle for me. Even being very religious and being a pastor.
Yo, that shit is
I
so
have
easy. I don't know.
different views than most on relationships and monogamy, but
Hey, she's a pastor and she's bro, people just take all the labels they want these days, even if they don't go together at all.
I'm doing it.
Couple further clarifying questions. The length of your marriages.
Yeah.
The first marriage, how long was your first marriage?
Been like 3 years.
And was it monogamous or open?
Monogamous. That was, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Your second marriage, how long did that one last?
That one was longer. We were both very deep into church. I was a deaconess. He was a deacon. We were in a traveling gospel band. That marriage and relationship was 12 years. It was mostly monogamous until right up at the end when we opened our marriage up because I came out. So.
Oh, okay. And you said towards the end, and it was a 12 you were married. So
Yeah.
would you say was it year 10?
Probably
year 11?
year 10.
Year
yeah,
10,
and
year
I met
11.
my ex-wife right there at the end.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pinky.
All right. Man,
Who's
there's
Pinky?
a lot of lore here.
Just me
okay,
because
so-
Johnny's little circle is
And
pink.
then, how long how long was your third marriage?
That one, oh goodness, 7 years. Around
7 years.
Jeez, how old is this girl?
How
How's she?
first got married?
Jesus.
Oh goodness, 1920, yeah.
1920. Okay. And then
Like it
the
was
guy you married,
1920?
How long had you been dating him prior to the marriage?
Okay, that's enough out of this lady.
To take in.
So you had
Do any kind of interacting until I was 19.
This lady keeps
Met
thinking it's about to be her
him
turn and
online.
like
This was
almost
back when,
talking.
like Yahoo Messenger and AOL Messenger was still a thing.
Okay.
I think we chatted on that platform for about a month or 2 before he met me in person, and then we had like a 3-year relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Youth.
Okay.
Of not celebrating Christmas.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, he celebrates Christmas and birthday, so I'll give this a shot. I had never done that before until I was in my 20s. Never celebrated my birthday or anything. Yeah.
And so you've pretty much been, it sounds like, there weren't really long periods of being single.
No.
You were married married, pretty
There you
much.
go. That's right.
I mean, what was the longest break from, I guess, the age of 18 to now at 37?
She must be a
like,
fantastic
of
chef.
actually being single, I guess, or not married, I suppose.
A couple months. I mean,
Couple months.
Okay.
And
A couple of months.
I'm trying to parse all this
I know.
information that's coming at me. It's a lot.
I should have went last.
So,
Sorry.
no, are you still like? What's your denomination? You're Christian, right?
Christian slash a little Shinto, a little Buddhism. My church kind of incorporates spirituality from a lot of different religions.
Okay.
Especially like nature.
That makes a lot more
a little bit
sense.
of Christianity, but
Because you can't be
mostly love thy neighbor,
polyamorous
love the earth,
and
love yourself.
So it's
a
Church of
Christian
Spiritualism.
deacon, I don't
Yeah,
think.
pretty much. It's called the Waters, so very, very nature.
We'll come back to that. I'm sure Andrew has a couple questions on that one. but
Andrew
we'll
probably
get
has a lot of
everybody's,
questions.
Relationship status. So okay, and your longest relationship you said.
All
is
right, let's see if
13
the dating
years,
coach
13
is in a
years, okay.
relationship or not.
Currently, and how long have you been seeing your current partner?
So we.
Oh my
met
God,
on
he's
the
still talking to this girl? No.
So also she.
Move it along.
12
You
lifestyle.
I'm sorry. Last time you spoke to them.
Years.
Good or
really deep in the church.
time.
Jesus.
What do you?
What? Tell us about the polycules.
Oh goodness. Well, I mean, for me,
Oh God,
would
I thought
probably
he said he was
say
gonna come back
4
to
at
that.
It was like the max of me dating at the same time. Those 4 people.
Four
But
people,
then,
got it.
especially back in the South and being in the LGBTQIA community, there's not a lot of us. So like
Right.
those same 4 probably dated the same 4 who dated. Yeah. So,
Okay. And what was the the gender breakdown for the polycule? Was it?
Honestly, it was mostly girls and those girls' boyfriends. I'm not sure why those girls' boyfriends seem to have a thing.
But you were just dealing with the
And-
if they're like co-opting unicorn. It's
great.
No need to apologize. I was just asking you some clarifying questions. But what about you? Go ahead.
Okay, about time.
Questions again.
Yeah, how do you follow that? Show's over.
But I'm having a field day as a dating coach. My mind is like, okay. Yes.
Yeah. Can I have you just tilt your mic down
Yes.
slightly? Perfect.
There we go.
So
All
it's,
right, quick. What do we think? Single dating coach or married dating coach? I feel like most of the ones that come on here are single. I'm thinking single dating coach. If you're watching ahead, don't answer.
What's your current relationship status? How long have you been single, if you're single?
Single for about a year. Longest
Yep,
relationship, 5
called it.
years.
Longest relationship, 5 years. Who broke up with who in the 5-year relationship?
I broke up with him on the 5-year.
And was the 5-year relationship the one that ended a year ago?
No, that one was like 3 years.
3 years. Who broke up with who in that one?
I think he broke up with me. That one was kind of mutual.
Broke up with you. Got it. Okay. Or mutual, sure.
I'm sure he broke up with me on that one. I can't remember.
Got it. Okay. What about you?
Longest relationship, I was married for 13 years. I'm currently single, and the last time I dated someone was probably 6 months ago.
6 months ago. All right. The marriage, who broke up with who?
I ended that.
You ended it, so you filed for divorce?
Yes, I did.
Only marriage?
Only marriage.
Only marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was
These terms. What's only marriage?
Wait, what?
Only marriage.
Wait, what did I say?
Only marriage.
Oh, I meant if it was her only marriage.
Oh, her only marriage.
Yeah,
I was like, does that mean 2 OnlyFans people are married? Like, what does that mean?
He's learning a lot today.
Poor Andrew.
No,
Only
just
marriage.
if it was if she had been married other times.
no, it was my only marriage. There was DV involved, so yeah.
Got it. Okay. And did that? And if you don't want to talk about it, that's totally fine. Was that something that was always present in the relationship, or it manifested later on?
I think those are things that kind of happen. It's like a cycle, on and off. So
sure.
it was always present. Not a lot in the beginning. Eventually, yeah.
Got worse. Got it. Okay. And you said you've been single for 6 months. Was that when the marriage ended, or is that
no.
a different
so,
relationship?
I've been divorced about 5 years now.
5 years. Got it. Okay.
The last person that I considered seriously dating was when we ended. It was about 6 months ago.
And how long were you seeing him?
I want to say maybe 8 or 9 months.
All right, we got the gist.
Currently single. I've been single for like 2-3 months maybe. And then I had a relationship not too long ago. So, sorry.
Got it. The 1-year relationship, who broke up with who?
I broke up with her because we were having issues from previous circumstances and things that happened.
Okay. And actually, I think it might be worthwhile to go around the table on this. What's your orientation? Are you
I'm
bisexual?
bisexual.
Bi? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you, your most recent relationship?
It was with a guy.
It was with a guy, but
Yeah.
the longest was with a woman, is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay. Got it. Okay. So bisexual.
I think, gosh, I don't know. I would consider myself straight. I've only dated men, but I've definitely experimented with women. So not dating specifically for a relationship. But
Got it. What about you?
Same, straight, experimentation, but straight.
Okay. Bi.
Lesbo.
Oh, lesbian.
No, I'm kidding. 99.9% of the time, yeah.
All right. What about you?
Bye.
Okay, bi. And then your relationship status?
I'm single.
Single?
I've been single for 2 years and a half. My longest relationship was like 3 years and a half. It was like with my high school classmate. And then I went to Germany as an exchange student. It was long distance relationship, and I felt like I broke up with him.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the 3-year relationship, you said it was in high school?
From high school.
You
I started dating him when I was like 17, but I knew him from
Okay.
in Cologne.
Date with a view for twice. Okay. And then you've been in the US for how long?
I came here last September, last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been here for what? 9 months?
More or less.
10 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you speak German or English better?
English better.
Yeah.
And you speak 3 languages, or do you speak more?
I have learned more than 8 languages, but I'm only fluent in English, German, and Chinese.
Got it. Okay. All right. Got it.
8
Okay,
languages.
so
Jeez, I can
you've been
barely
single for
remember
2.5
one language.
years. Have you done any dating here in the United States?
Not yet.
Nothing.
No. And
No, any dating apps or anything like that?
no, I actually don't know what to do, and also like rationally, yeah, I think I shouldn't date here because I need to go back to China next year. Like I don't see the relationship going anywhere.
I see.
And I was heartbroken in my last relationship, and it took me, I think, more than 2 years to almost recover. So.
Got it. You said you've been single for 2.5 years. Was that what was the length of the relationship from 2.5 years ago?
It was actually less than 1 year, but it was
Less than 1 year. Okay.
Devastating.
Devastating. And that was in China.
Okay. Boring.
Hey.
Yes.
Straight by.
Straight.
Okay. Andrew, gay. We'll get
Lesbian.
Definitely.
Andrew's a lesbian.
Lesbian.
He's actually a black lesbian. So
Okay. Yeah.
if it doesn't work out with your, do you have a type, by the way?
Woman.
No,
No,
I mean
I actually-
like white girl. Do you like
Yeah.
white women?
I do
black?
prefer white women,
You prefer? Is your current fiance? She's
white.
a. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, Italian and Latina mixed.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Spicy.
Yeah, best of both.
All right. FYI. He bought something on our merch. Bought a hoodie. He probably bought. Preference. Like, do you prefer innies or outies, Andrews?
Do you want us to go in order to answer that?
Yeah, if you're
or-
bisexual, do you have a preference for innies or outies?
I prefer my partner. So, and he has.
That's a great answer. Okay. That's a man. He doesn't have anything.
Same, because I'm sure mine's watching, but that's also an honest answer. But I like my ladies thick, so
Oh, okay. You like.
I love that shirt. That you got on, that hoodie.
Okay, you like them
Identify with
thick.
your
All right.
hoodie, yes.
I have no preference.
She doesn't care. All right. Then.
I mean, I would still do it, but probably.
Probably yes, appropriate.
No, it's probably not.
Chef Dill Pickles, here's what we're gonna do. We gotta, it's probably, I wanna be respectful to the panelists here. If you send in a $10, I'll treat it as like a TTS and we'll read it. You're gonna have to send in something more appropriate. That's the Chef Dill Pickles. He's being slightly racist, so I can't pull it up. Can't pull it up, guys. And by the way, keep the discipline good in the YouTube chat as well.
right,
Moderators, keep the discipline.
That's not gonna
JJ
happen.
Matt, I'm not pulling up your super chat. Keep the discipline good, guys. We're not gonna pull up like anything race related or anything like that. So, yeah.
Appreciate the respect.
Really quick, Coastal Operator. It's below the threshold, but I want to respond to that. If you've got the hookup for the white Jazz cups, do you have the 16 ounces? Because I need to get my hands on some. Because I contacted the what's it called? The supplier, not the supplier, the
distributor,
manufacturer directly.
Manufacturer.
They said, yeah, we stopped making them 2022s. So Coastal Operator, can you just bump a DM on Instagram or wherever? Yeah, just bump a DM on Instagram at whatever, and I would appreciate the hookup. Guys, if you want to get a message in, $100 read. TTS is 200. And let me see. Let's see. Where do we begin?
Yeah, let's
Andrew,
begin.
I think would be interested in exploring the whole pastor thing with you. Although it sounds like you're not
Really?
Strictly Christian.
No,
with your religion.
So you're just a spiritualist, right?
Very spiritual, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We
So
incorporate many different religions into our practice.
Okay, so wouldn't be.
Are you a universalist?
No, I wouldn't really say that because there are some things that really don't align with, I would say, my teachings or viewpoints, but we don't turn down any viewpoints. As long as the religion or spirituality is based in love and respect for the planet we live on and its people, we pretty much align.
Okay, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So let's see here. Where do we begin? We're going to start with Shannon here with your notes. Shannon, you previously stated that you will not date somebody who makes less than 7 figures. Has that changed at all?
I said 7 figures.
Yeah, you said you only date 6 to 7 figure, or well,
Said
six or 7. Okay, fair. Figure earning men, and you'd love to discuss your experiences.
Sorry. So.
Oh, were you laughing?
Like.
Oh, okay.
I think she sneezed.
Oh, it was a sneeze.
It was
Oh,
a
okay.
sneeze.
I thought it was like a.
It was a laugh.
It might have been a laugh.
All right.
I'm going with laugh.
We can talk about it.
Go ahead.
So yeah, we talked about that in our previous show that I was on, that I did previously date men who made 6 or have 6 to 7 figures. However, my current relationship that I'm in, it's a little complicated in regards to that. However, I have
boys, if you can't figure out how to make 6 figures a year, go to 1 year of HVAC certification, do HVAC for like 4 years, go into commercial HVAC, and you will easily be making $100,000 a year. No problem.
negotiated for myself that
That's what I do. So
sort of want in a partner because he brings so much else to the table.
Like what?
Well, we have a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot in common. Like I mentioned, we're both Jewish, so we have religion in common. I mean, we're both not super religious, but we do have where we grew up celebrating the same holidays and having similar traditions and stuff like that.
But you don't go to temple, any of that?
We used to go to more of like a reformed sort of temple, but we stopped going because it was outside. And it's just kind of gross it was like in a park. It was weird. Maybe we'll start going again if they like start doing services inside, but when it's too cold out or too hot, it's weird. We also are both into comedy, so he's into comedy writing and performance as well. And yeah, we just have very similar like wants for our future and stuff like that.
So what's he making?
So he does a few different things as well for income. I don't know his exacts of what he's making, but he has a lot of different investments. So.
Do you make more than he does?
At the moment, I think I might actually. It depends on the month and what we're doing, but some months I probably do make more, but he, in the grand scheme of things, has more resources and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. So you don't know how much your person you're dating makes?
Well, he doesn't have like a standard job. He's more like a gig economy type with his work. Like he does video editing and he'll do stuff in the arts for film and stuff like that. but he also just started his own business with my help because I run my own businesses, a few of them. So he's starting a photo booth company. So that's kind of new, but he did have some help from his family in starting that up. So that's where it's a little complicated.
What's the complication?
Well, like his specific like income, it's like he's maybe not
I
making
see.
money yet from the actual business, but he has like family income, resources, things like that.
So you definitely will date outside of a 6 or 7 figure bracket.
I mean, it depends on the person. I normally, before meeting him, would have probably not been that open to it just because of my previous experiences with men who've brought in that type of income and just being kind of comfortable with like upper middle class life. But like I was saying, he has so much that he like brings to the table and we really get along. And yeah, he's opened me up to doing that.
Is he older or younger?
He's older. He's about 10 years older.
Gotcha. Okay.
But before him, my past 2 relationships had more income coming in from like working and stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
So did you meet this?
I went on a dating app.
Boring.
I don't have the notes here. Hang on. That's
All right.
Sorry, you happened to get up. I'm like, I just couldn't keep that going.
Yeah, that was so boring. Let's move it along.
Did it taste weird?
Yeah.
I don't know. I took one.
I don't really think so.
Does it taste weird?
Like tap. Is it tap?
It is tab,
Yeah, okay. Just like tap.
but
Should I be concerned?
Do you want to let us know why it would taste weird?
no, it's we just put in fresh water.
Oh, okay.
But it's running through like this filter, and I think it's probably not harmful, but like the filter or something is like giving it a weird taste or something. It tastes fine.
Oh, I can smell that.
Yeah, it
like
smells a little
fishy.
citrusy.
Oh, it smells like
Citrusy? We all smell in different things. Okay.
What is going on?
This is.
Brian's trying to poison them.
The water tastes fine.
Yeah. No, but that's
smells like
interesting.
fish.
It does smell fishy. I don't even know how that's possible.
How is that possible?
Can someone Google that?
Wait, chat. Okay, here's
1
or 2 months ago, we bought octopus from Costco.
Okay.
Well, hold on. And I kept it in the refrigerator for 1 day, and then we used it during the show, and then we tossed it. I think this is my hypothesis theory. It's
Okay.
it's
Okay.
stupid low IQ.
Moving along. See, this is why I gave it like 15 minutes because I knew it was going to be so boring
This is about to turn
at the
into
beginning.
a crazy live.
Tap water filter contains charcoal.
Yes.
So
Octopus particles.
No.
Clean your fridge. I cleaned it. The girl from China knows something. What? Hold on, give me 1 sec. Guys, I can't be, I know you guys want us to talk about like dating and whatever, but I can't be having my guests drinking octopus water.
I drank the entire thing, Brian.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, Andrew,
No, zero warning whatsoever.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Look.
It's still better than well water.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's
Wait, isn't low water good?
It's good for you,
Yeah.
but it doesn't taste very good.
No, yeah.
No, and I ran all the glasses through the dishwasher with the soap last night.
Did you have an octopus in your
No,
dishwasher? Is that where it was?
Did he have an octopus in the dishwasher?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure. He said it was in the refrigerator, and then but it doesn't smell there. So I'm like, well, maybe he washed the octopus in the dishwasher.
Or the
I
sink,
was, yeah.
because the sink.
She's going with the sink.
You know what, Felicity? You should have just not said anything. You should.
It's not too.
It's good.
Minerals.
We've been drinking it. Andrew's been drinking it for the past 3 days. So apparently.
Alcohol for 3 days too.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Did you want to revise your message? Let me see if you did. Scroll up. Don't show these, please. Just don't scroll up. I'll pull them up. All right. We have some people who bought some merch. Who
Octopus
this new merch
washer T-shirt.
Yeah, just that if you want to revise. Okay. The octopus
We're gonna be
talking
caught
about
up.
that a little bit. It's complicated because he's part of like the gig economy, and he also has like some investments, like his property and things like that. And he just started a new business, and he's getting some help from family with starting that up. So that's why I say it's a little complicated, because he's got his hat in a few different things.
And you
Oh,
said
we're gonna be
that
live
he
soon.
got you a promise ring.
I'm wearing it right now, yes. Basically, we've been together for a year, and it's kind of like his commitment to obviously being loyal and to having a future
Promise
together,
rings
but
were
it's
like
not.
thought promise rings were like for high schoolers. I think adults actually did that. What is she? She's probably like mid-late 20s. So he's like late 30s. What is a late 30s dude doing giving out promise rings? Jesus.
An engagement, because we're just not really ready to be engaged. He knows that I have pretty like high standards when it comes to like the person I'm with and making a certain amount of income, so he wants to work for the next year to get me a better engagement ring.
Okay. I think I haven't heard about promise rings since high school.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what I'm saying.
old-fashioned for sure.
Okay. All right. And then you wanted to. These are your new notes. You'll be talking to your doctor about skin removal surgery.
Yeah.
Did you write? That's the most recent ones you sent us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
you're getting it? Okay.
last time I was on the show, I was down about 80 pounds, and I've maintained that weight loss. So I've basically been losing weight for like 2 years. The first year I lost the 80 pounds, and then this past year I've maintained that loss. And so now I'm trying to basically do it again, and by the time that I do another like 75 to 80 pounds, I'm planning to get skin removal surgery. So I'm talking to my doctor about that right now. And that's kind of like what I document of my own content, of kind of like my glow up weight loss journey. Yeah.
Okay. And
Your journey.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. It's the journey.
And okay, we're
Andrew
gonna
doesn't like
move
journeys.
over to. Nope, she was gonna be here, but she was 30 minutes late, so no notes for her. We have
like the notes Nazi, like
Oh.
the same as the soup Nazi.
No
Saying,
notes
no notes
for
for you.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
wait, I have something that I want to talk about with the skin removal.
Oh,
If we go back to that real quick.
is it dating related?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So the reason that I'm thinking about it now is because I'm trying to talk to my doctor about getting it through my insurance. However, my boyfriend has given me the money to get a tummy tuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And he said I can talk about it. Like we've discussed what I, can
Don't you
share on the
usually, when you do a
podcast.
tummy tuck, though, you do all the weight loss first and then do the tummy tuck, right?
Yeah. So we're trying to plan out when that tummy tuck's going to happen, but I already have the money to either do that, or if insurance can cover that, then I want to get like my arms and potentially my thighs done. So I have the money to do it. So I feel pretty motivated.
Amazing.
Okay. Here, I'll do Chef Tail Pickles really quick. The agent chef that taught me how to cook would always put the octopuses in the dish. Oh my God. It's standard culinary practice.
It's standard culinary
Don't
practice.
be ignorant, Andrew.
I love that that's a thing now. This is great.
And then, we have.
Don't put your octopus in the dishwasher, ladies. It's never going to work out.
Wash your octopuses.
All right, we're going to get to Gabriella. Gabriella there.
It's Gabrielle.
Oh, my bad. Okay, Gabrielle, let me fix that.
You just call me Gabby.
Okay. Are those reading glasses or?
Yeah. Well, they're like prescription. I have to have them on. I can't see.
Okay, that's fine. You said in your notes here one time you hooked up, or a guy you hooked up with.
We didn't hook up. We didn't hook up.
Well, I'll read it as you wrote it. But one time a guy you hooked up with and dated lied to you about his age because he knew you wouldn't get with him if he told you his actual age.
Okay, I thought it was something else, but yeah, he lied about me. Lied about his age to me. He was 2 years younger than me.
Oh, how old were you?
I was
At the time?
17 turning 18, but I was very strict on how like much younger I dated because I have a little sister. He's in the same age range as her, and that's just weird.
So 17 going 18, so he was 15?
He just turned 16.
Okay.
And you were 17?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, he
I
lied
mean, it
about
just
it.
bothered
Okay.
me.
No, that's, I mean,
What?
I don't think there's... Is there an issue there with the 17 with the 16?
I mean,
I don't see what.
not necessarily, but it's just more.
The issue was he
uncomfortable
lied.
Yeah, and then it was just uncomfortable with me because it's just weird.
Okay. You said that you think traditional values that are pushed onto men and women in relationships.
Finally.
Wait.
Finally,
hold
a
on.
topic.
Was there more to that?
I don't remember.
That's
saying
not a
that.
sentence.
Okay, here, I'll pull it up directly. Wait. Oh. You had a guy try to tie you up with a bandana?
Oh my gosh.
What does
Oh,
that have to
that's
do with
right.
traditional relationships?
Okay. How did somebody get tied up with a bandana?
Bro,
Was
it
like
was
really
You need
Miscommunication.
like 6
He took
bandanas to
things the
properly
wrong
tie.
way.
No,
Oh.
I should
We
stop
were
talking.
watching a show.
As everyone
And
does.
I made a joke about something that was happening on TV, and then he was like, "Oh, you want me to tie you up with a bandana?" And then started to get up and grab it, and I was just like, "What are you talking about? No. It was just weird, odd.
Did he tie you up with the bandana?
No.
Oh.
No.
Was it because it was a bandana and not rope that, or?
Maybe.
Okay.
And okay, so going back to this though, so it was any dating topics or takes you want to speak on, if so what, to which you wrote, I think traditional values that are pushed onto men and women in relationships or otherwise. So are you against traditional values that are pushed onto men and women, or are you in favor of them?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's really up to what the people in the relationship wants. But when you're trying to push that agenda onto people who aren't practicing that, that's when it gets negative.
I see. Okay. What negative how, I guess?
I mean, it's just judging people for living their life the way you don't want to live it, I guess. Like, it gets, like, let's say a girl's out sleeping with multiple people, not in a relationship, and then someone who, like, is in a long term, they just start hating on that person. I think it's just mind your own business, because it's not your life, I guess. Things like that.
Do you think it should be that way just with strangers? What about people that are like in your family?
I mean, in
Somebody
your
that
family, you
wanna-
can advocate it, but it gets like, if you can advocate for having a better dating life, but if you're pushing it in a way that's shaming them for how they're doing things, then it's inherently negative, I guess.
Okay. So if somebody, I'm trying to think of an example here. If a guy didn't want to date a woman because of her body count, and he prescriptively was like, yeah, that's a bad thing, people shouldn't be promiscuous, would you object to?
No, because that's his preference. That's what he thinks.
Yeah, but he's trying to instill he's trying to put out to the world, like, don't do that.
Well, I mean, you can advocate for it.
Okay.
But if you're calling someone a slut because of it, then that's where it gets foggy.
Gets foggy, okay. And then I noticed in some of your Instagram photos you wear a cross. Are you Christian?
Not necessarily, no. I'm trying to get back into it. I was Baptist for most of my life. And I just fell out of the belief when I was in middle school, and recently I've been wanting to get back into it.
Got it, okay. And then you also wrote, as far as disagreements with the show, you said you had a lot, but you can't pinpoint all of it.
I can't pinpoint it because I just have a really bad memory.
Oh my God.
It's like, I can't remember.
Okay, so you said probably his opinions on body count. What are my opinions on body count?
Well, I can't remember, but I think it's just like the fact that it matters, I guess. I mean, it does, but it doesn't.
What's your body count?
2.
Okay. So, I guess, why does it not matter?
If you're looking for someone with a low body count, then look in that dating pool.
Let me ask something different too. If you count like BJs, fingerings, all that stuff, does your body count change?
Goes up by like 1.
Okay, so it does change.
I wouldn't add it.
Well,
I would include that in the body count.
Well, I'm just curious. Like, is the criteria for body count just penetrative sex?
No, because I think that rules out a lot of
Yeah, because then
things.
then like homosexual women, that wouldn't be a body count then, right?
This is a good
Well,
point.
I think you would have a separate category, but for the heterosexual body count, I think strictly would refer to intercourse.
So if a chick was like, Brian, I'm a virgin, but I sucked 100 dicks, that would be like...
You know she'd be really good at it.
So that could be judged.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't consider it a body count. It's still not good. It's still not great.
I think if you suck a dick, you got to add that to the body count.
Well, you just reminded me with the 100 BJs. I do want to add
I just reminded you of something, did I?
Yeah, I want to talk about Bonnie Blue at one point today.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure like half the things she does and says are just lies just for attention.
I've seen her Twitter.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, she faked a pregnancy. Like both those, Bonnie Blue. Who's the other DGen?
Lily.
Lily
Phillip.
Phillip.
Yeah, they're just. I think they do some DGen stuff, but I think a lot of it is just like, oh, I'm gonna do the most claim I did the most salacious thing, or, you know, I don't think they actually do a lot of degenerate stuff. They claim they do.
I've seen some.
Yeah, I don't.
I
doubt,
haven't purchased anything.
Yeah, I don't
but
doubt
I've seen
that
it
they
on
do
Twitter.
But I think they sensationalize some of this stuff and they just make it up because they're like, oh, I don't have to actually do the thing. I can just say I did the thing and still
And then
receive
get
the
an
benefit.
audience, yeah.
Do you think that chick, Bonnie, is really in her 20s?
No.
I think she is, but some people just...
Late 20s, maybe. Late 20s. I seen her at in one of the episodes, and she did not look... She's not 20, that's for sure.
I don't think she is. I think
You think she's in her 30s?
Yeah,
I mean, she
for
could be
sure.
lying about her age, but
For
I
sure,
don't
that
think
chick
she's
is in her
30s.
30s.
I
Early
don't know.
30s, but I think she's in her 30s.
I think she's had some work done, which makes her in the face. I don't know. I don't know.
Just reminded me.
Oh.
But so
That's true, that does make you look
the
older.
BJ, does that count towards body count? I mean, like, for example, Andrew, I wouldn't say a woman whose body count is 0, but she's given 100 BJs is nearly as desirable or the same as a woman who has a body count of 0 and is also given 0 BJs.
So okay, so hang on.
But I wouldn't categorize it as like as a body.
But what if she's only had one body, right? Given 0 BJs or anything, and the other one has 0 bodies, but it's given 100 BJs. Which one would you select for?
The one with
one body.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
then.
So you
you see what I'm saying? So it seems like
yeah,
you
sure.
do categorize it as at least on par, or something close to on par with it.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say like, okay, a woman who's had 3 bodies, but it was group sex, could be arguably worse than a woman who has
3 individual partners,
or even like 4 or 5 like individual bodies, but they were like long-term.
Because of the nature of the act, right?
Right.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just think that like, if a dude, if he like finishes in a chick's mouth, like I'm just gonna count that as the same thing, dude. I just count it as the same thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, perhaps you could ask. It would be fair to ask a clarifying, like, okay, well, if your sex body count is this, what's your job body count? I guess, but I wouldn't call it a. Maybe we could.
Yo, what movie was it? I think it was like Clerks. Clerks 1, I think. Where he's like dating that girl and she's like a virgin, and then at the end she tells him that she's given like 35 or 30 BJs or something like that. And he starts freaking out. It's a great movie.
throw it in there, but when I think of body
What would
count,
you
I've
go? The
always
blow count?
considered it-
What's the blow count?
What's the
Yeah.
blow count?
What's the blow count?
You know what? Maybe there's been a
It's a
lot
new
of
thing.
a lot of the girl claims
A lot of the
like
virgins who have
like
a
2 or
high blow
3,
count.
but the oral sex count very high.
Yeah.
Shit, I need to start.
Like it's a DUI thing, right? It's like did you blow 6? Did you blow 7? Right for the DUIs.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's a good. Well, you know what though? Here's the other thing that I had something on this, is so, and maybe the women on the panel could weigh in on this too. Is so there's the body count, right? You could have a girl who has a body count of 1 and a body count of 1, but if you look at the specific guy that each of those women was with, that could have an impact. Like even if it's she has 1, she has 1. If they dealt with just like a filthy dude, like just a scumbag, like I'd almost like a fucking grimy dude. That's just an amplifier. Like if it was, I don't know, like who's a fucking grimy dude? Like Lil Xan or Tekashi 6ix9ine or like NLE Choppa or the Island Boys. Wait, Mary, Google Island Boys.
Yeah.
Google images.
Please
so the
don't.
girls here know what I'm talking about. If a girl's been with a grimy dude, that's like an amplifier. That's like 3x. You got to 3x the body.
I don't think it's just like who she slept with that one too. I think you're also questioning why she's with that person and if she's overcome her trauma and like if she's addicted to chaos.
These guys, can you like
Oh my
right click,
God.
open a new tab?
They count as 30.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm gay.
If a girl has had sex, if she's only had
Yeesh.
sex with one of the Island Boys, that's like 30 bodies. She might as well have a body count of 30. Yeah, it's a 30x amplifier. So that's another component of the body count discussion where if she fucked a grimy dude,
You got to count all of his.
Okay, so one more question.
do we have the photo really quick?
One more question about this. What about times? So if it's like a girl slept with 2 guys, but only once each, but so slept with one guy 100 times.
That's an interesting. Well, it could almost go both ways, couldn't it? Because on one hand, a one-night stand is kind of grimy.
Yeah, it's pretty grimy.
But then, whereas the other one, you would say, well, it was like a long-term committed monogamous relationship. But then, yeah, shit.
Was it
I don't
with
know.
the Island Boys?
I don't know. That's
Yeah, depends on.
I would frame. You know what? Here's how I would frame this, right?
Okay.
And there's probably variations based on like if you start going more, if there's like more. So it'd be something like this. If a girl has one body, and she slept with a guy one time, versus she had a boyfriend and she slept with him 1,000 times. Honestly, I would prefer the girl who just slept with the guy one time.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. And then I'm number 2? Yeah.
Okay, but what if it's 3?
3.
One time.
Yeah, 3 one time.
And then a chick with one guy.
With one guy, but like
100
1,000 times.
Yeah.
Really, even if it was a long-term relationship,
In
she's
that
being
case-
monogamous and safe. You're just like, no thanks.
In that
I want the
case,
one night.
no, I'm not
No,
saying.
no.
Hold on, I'm
No,
not saying I
he's not
wouldn't
saying
date.
that.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying I wouldn't date her. I'm just saying what would be more preferable.
Yeah.
So I'm not excluding the one in the long-term relationship in the 1v1 example he gave, but so you're saying 3 one-night stands versus 1. I'd pick the 1 in that situation.
Me too.
I'd pick the 1 in that situation.
Me too.
But if it's like equal for equal, but then if it starts getting, okay, how about this, Andrew, to you? 10 one-night stands or 10 long-term relationships where they had sex 100 times each. So
How do you know they
you
had
can't
sex
really
many
have.
times?
Can you have 10 long-term relationships?
say she's like 35 and she's had, sure.
Nah,
That's a
at
lot
that point, I
of-
would take the 10 one-night stands if I had
10
to choose
one-night
between
stands,
it.
interesting.
Because if you're in a long-term relationship that's failed 9 times, that's a problem, right? That's a bigger red flag than.
Then just have.
They-
Oh, that's
yeah.
interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, the other one's not great either.
No, it's not great either.
Neither.
Yeah. Well, this is you got to push the button, right?
Right.
Yeah. This is the body count trolley problem.
This is the
the body
Do you
count
have
trolley
a
problem.
photo? Is it like? It's like low quality or whatever. Go ahead, you can pull it up super quick.
If you had to choose.
If you had to pick. Oh God.
Yeah, if a girl was a virgin but fucked one of these guys, I'm sorry, that's 30x amplifier.
Well, I think it's also because they're from Florida.
It could Florida, man. But yeah,
Already like.
I mean, chat. Do you agree? Like, if a girl has sex with a grimy dude, it's like a amplifier. It's like an X. It's a multiplier.
I feel like this should apply to guys too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you are sticking your something and something nasty, and you're like that counts.
What would be the? I wonder who's like a grimy chick.
Oh, we got plenty.
Who's a grimy?
Name one.
There's a lot, so right?
I don't know. Oh,
Who-
I don't
come
The
on.
ones that I think are bad though probably aren't.
Come on.
that bad.
Who?
Oh, well, I mean, we could use her example. Like, if you knew a guy had. Well, it's different though, because girls, like. Okay, do you guys know who Lily Phillips is?
Yes.
Bonnie Blue?
Yes.
Okay.
You just talked about them.
She does. Yeah.
I know. Sorry, I'm like getting back to my seat.
That's pretty grimy. But that's over the top, though. It's like she's worse than the Island Boys would be the other way.
Brooke Candy is like an island boy, but as a woman.
Well, there you go.
I'm not sure.
I get that picture in my head.
I'm not sure who that is.
I don't know who that is.
Let's see here.
Do I want to find out?
Going back to you.
I don't think I want to find out, but I'm gonna.
Like I said, I can't pinpoint them.
You say, but pinpoint.
Bro,
Go ahead,
I
pinpoint.
can't.
American
Pinpoint. Go ahead,
rapper
bud,
and
count.
singer.
So, okay, of what you just heard, and we were talking about
Oh, yeah.
grimy,
Pass.
women sleeping with grimy dudes. No pushback there.
No.
Oh,
The
God.
Island Boys are disgusting. They're disgusting.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure they did OnlyFans
Gross.
together too, or had something
Oh, yeah,
on
they did-
Twitter. They
they
did that.
did
That was
some-
disgusting.
Yeah.
I saw like a video. No, that was absolutely
Yeah,
disgusting.
but like if a girl tells me that she like slept with a famous rapper, I'm just like, that's a 30x
Yeah, that's gross.
multiplier on the body.
But
count.
what if it's
depends
famous?
on the
What if
rapper,
it's
though.
famous rock star?
It does not depend on the
bad.
rapper.
Yeah, but which
Like
one's
Gene
worse? Which one's
Simmons?
worse to you, though?
Gene Simmons, rock stars actually have talent, so I'm gonna have to say, you know, it's although
So
is that
you're
worse?
so you're going for
That's
the
kinda like
so you're going for like Metallica fangirl over Diddy fangirl.
It would be like who's like I don't know. Who's do you listen to rap music?
Yeah.
All right, who's like a big rap artist right now?
Kendrick.
Is
Kendrick
NLE?
Lamar, but
Kendrick.
Kendrick Lamar's a sweet.
He's married.
Or like Drake or something.
NLE. Oh yeah.
Or
Okay.
NLE Choppa
If a
or
girl
something.
fucked Drake, yikes. Yeah, because then she has at least good taste in music. Like if she fucked, like Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses or some shit. Like yeah, I'ma give her. Although man, he's been around since the '80s, so that's a rough one.
I have a question. Is it different for you if she actually like was in a relationship and dated a like famous musician and then they broke up? Like it wasn't just a one-time thing.
Well, the body is still grimy.
Okay.
Because they still slept with the dude. I don't know if it really changes that much.
Oh, but hang on. If
Oh
we get,
boy, all right. Go.
if we get back to the B question here, right? If they blew one of the Island Boys, wouldn't you consider that the same thing in that case?
Yeah.
Nah,
Yup.
it's still bad. Don't get me wrong, it's still bad, but it's like, it's the it's like the progression of worseness. So like if they just like held hands, then kissed, then like second base, oral sex, full sex. It's the progression of disgust.
Oh.
The disgust progression.
I think that shit's just as gross, dude.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, I think it's just as bad. I'm putting them both in the same category.
Okay, no, but so when we were talking about like, is it a body? I wasn't even attributing necessarily to, is it as bad or not? There could be some dispute over whether oral sex is, in terms of the disgust response, is as bad as sexual intercourse. It's disputable, I guess. The girls are loving this conversation.
Go for it.
Here's the
I mean, it's dating related.
Yeah.
Wait, Spyro did a algorithm here. I can't even parse this. Okay, Spyro. This.
Hey, where's the
Oral times body count is greater than 3.
Oh,
Bro.
well, maybe.
That's linguistics. All right, one night stand.
Thank you, Spyro, for the updated math.
Right,
He did the updated.
Yeah.
Thank you, Spiral. I can't even parse that. I don't even.
Yeah.
Wait, did he include it for the grimy? Was there a grimy?
Pull back up. Just use your order of operations.
I lost
Brian.
it. It got. Let me see. It got unstarted.
Cosine.
Yeah, use your order of operations.
Foods and body count.
Entertained by
I'm not
grimy
pushing
guys.
back because I think we're all kind of in agreement.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, how are you gonna know if somebody who's maybe not famous but still equally grimy? Like, there are men out there who sleep around crazy and don't talk about body count. So, like, I get you're having the discussion about it, but it's like I don't know how to like.
Well, women
interject or-
don't have the same intuitive disgust about it that men do. That's the interesting part.
You think?
Same
Well, I know
intuitive
so.
disgust?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I don't know if I buy that. They say that all the time. I don't know if I buy that because I've been asked my body count like by a lot of women, like on the first date.
this is
Definitely a lot of them. So I don't know. I mean, it might be like statistically relevant from like a study where they asked them, but like I don't know. I've had a lot of chicks ask me. So
yeah. So, paternity tests. Those are pretty recent inventions, right?
Yeah.
How would men assure paternity before a paternity test?
The way that they looked when the baby came out.
How else? What would be the best way to assure that the child was yours?
Make sure that you're the only one having sex
Right,
with
you're
her.
the only one, right?
Right.
So, for the assurance of reproduction for the purposes of survival, right? It makes sense why men have this kind of like revolt carriage to women with multiple men. They want to assure that that's their offspring. If they can't assure that it's the offspring, it also is detrimental to the mother because then they can just deny it, right? It's not mine. You slept with multiple men, so that's it. That's why that revolt or disgust is there for men. It's not
You don't think
always
that
there
that's
for women.
societal in there too?
What do you mean?
I don't know if there's.
This is just what you find socially when you give different polls and different questions between the sexes.
Correct.
It's not that women don't care about it. I'm not saying that, right? And some women really care about it. Just that they seem to care about it less than men care about it with them.
Or a different reason why. Like for women, it'd be protection or safety because if you have someone that's
Yeah, it's
sleeping
not
around a lot,
revulsion.
right? We might, yeah. So if you use that terminology with someone, a guy might go revolted. A woman, we might forgive more or something, or we might look at a different angle.
Well, that would tell me that it's just not as prominent of a deal breaker as it is for men.
Or if you just did how you ask, because I do think that there's women that are going to be like, I don't want a guy that's sleeping around too much because I don't want to catch something or I don't want to.
Yeah, but
whatever.
let me here. I'll show you a big distinct difference that I think will maybe change your view on this. So, if you tell a guy, well, there's a woman and she's 28, 29 years old, right, and she's still a virgin, they think, well, that's a pretty good catch, right? 28, 29. But the flip side is that women will often reject men at 28, 29 who are virgins because they think, what the fuck is wrong with this guy that no woman wants him? So that happens often to men.
I don't know. I've seen it in coaching. It just depends on different societies. And then also, I have a lot of clients that are 30s and 40s who are virgins.
Mostly men, though, right?
Just.
I coach women too.
Just 1 sec. We'll come right back to it.
Jungle.
Yo, Jungle. Guys, W's in the chat for Jungle.
Pop champagne. Yo, Brian. What up? Pop that bottle. Andrew is going to need it with all these lesbians.
Thank you, brother.
Mystery
Thank
and
you,
Bubba
Jungle.
Jake
What the
bringing
heck?
all the race jokes to life on the other side.
Who here
Hilarious
wants?
party.
Who here
Let's
wants
go
champagne?
Crucible.
Champagne? Champagne? Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No.
I'll take some.
Yes. Sorry,
I'm
you
not
can't have
driving.
any. Yes.
Yes.
So wait. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Wait. Yes. Yes.
just have
yes.
them raise their
Okay, so
hand if they want
5
one. You're
total.
so bad at
Yo,
counting.
Jungle. Thank you so much for the champagne pop, man.
Shut that stream off and be done with it. If they were to do something that stupid, they should probably not do that. Just saying.
Oh, because it's on your channel.
Yeah,
right?
just saying.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't be doing that.
But Jungle, thank you so much for the champagne pop. You're a
Uh-oh,
legend, sir.
Crucible
Thank you
chat's
so much, man.
acting
We'll get this
foolish over there.
going. Sorry, you guys can continue on with your conversation. So you were talking about your clientele and how they don't really care.
I think it just depends. As far as for being a virgin, if the guy's insecure about being a virgin, he'll naturally go towards and by accident date women who will say something like that, right? But the more he heals from that insecurity, the more that all of a sudden he's naturally around people that really don't care. But as far as societal, we've noticed that certain countries don't necessarily consider body count or care, like Spain. Spain, for instance, women are very much so more sexually dominant there. They even go half on the bill or pay the bill is usually that kind of. So some of it's societal, some of it's very primal, of course. Like you want to make sure that you're procreating, that your seed that's yours. So of course there's something to it on that one. So I think it's also how you phrase the question to someone.
All right, let's do a really.
I don't know if it would be how you phrase it. What do you mean how you phrase the question?
If you ask a woman, hey, would you care if you were dating a guy and he was sleeping around with a whole bunch of women, while you guys were in a relationship? I'm sure she's going to have like a repulse factor in that, right?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
But that's not really what you would ask, right? So what the question determines, like, if you're asking previous partners, right? So I think if you were to keep all things equal, right, and you were to say to any number of different women, there's a man here who has a 100 body count, right, versus there's a woman here to the same equal amount of men who has a 100 body count, that the men would be far more revolted by that than the women.
Sure, and I'm just saying with that one, sometimes we notice that has a little bit to do with society, like in Spain compared to here, for instance. But yes, you have that for sure.
I'm picking up on a lot of words. Like you said, primal. I think you said something about like when you're selecting a mate to procreate and everything.
All right,
like
this is kind of a boring
body
episode.
Count and like putting value on.
We're actually going to
anybody,
watch
male,
something
female, whatever,
else for a minute.
Based on who
We might come back
they
to this.
touched or not touched. Like we're making
And
equations
then catch up after.
and trying to figure this shit out.
Because I want to be able to skip the boring parts. But there's something a little bit more interesting going on right now.
Judge to be in their best interest, i.e., what is affected. Other entities are desirable, what is worth seeking. Human beings need libertarian. Libertarians start at the point of rights. They start with self-ownership, assuming that one.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah the Raging Tomato here, bringing to you live another Moderator Monday. Tonight, I will be joined by Michael Lebowitz. Did I say
Leibowitz, but we can go with Lebowitz if you want.
Leibowitz. I'm going to screw it up all night. I'm just going to call him Michael. And then also I have made by JimBob. JimBob, JB, also known as my bulldog here at the Raging Tomato. This evening, we are discussing the question, where do rights come from? I believe in this circumstance, Michael has the affirmative and JimBob has the negative position. Michael, would you like to begin with your opening statement, please?
Sure. First, thank you very much for agreeing to moderate this. And JimBob, thank you for agreeing to participate in the debate. So in this context, a right is a moral claim or a just claim. In other words, a right is that to which one is morally entitled. Now notice that this presupposes a theory of morality. And incidentally, this is why I'm not a libertarian. Libertarians start at the point of rights. They start with self-ownership, assuming that one has a right to one's body. But they don't have.
Yeah, this is more interesting than the Whatever podcast, and I want to be able to skip parts of the Whatever podcast when we go back and watch it. So we're going to watch this for a bit.
A theory of morality to justify this claim. So what is morality? Morality refers to a code of values adopted by choice to guide human behavior. So do human beings need a code of morality? What are values, and are values factual, or are they just a matter of preference? For our purposes, there are two definitions of value, two senses in which we must use the term. The first definition is that which one seeks to gain and or keep. The second is any object or quality desirable as a means or end in itself. The first, as applies to humans, merely indicates what someone happens to value and is entirely subjective. The second, however, indicates what is desirable, what is worth seeking. This indicates what has value and is entirely factual, not a matter of opinion. Now, how do we arrive at these definitions? We do so by applying reason to our observations. We observe that certain entities, such as tables, chairs, and rocks, can neither act nor do they have to act to sustain themselves. Their existence is a matter of fact. They can do nothing to affect it. Other entities, however, such as worms, birds, lions, and humans, can and must act in order to sustain themselves. The difference, obvious to everyone, is between non-living entities and living entities. So when we observe living entities acting, we notice that some things, such as food, water, are good for them, while other things like poison and predators are obviously bad for them. They harm them. In other words, some things are of value to them. Hold on. While others are a disvalue. Is
he about to make the argument that rights come from what we notice is harmful?
Only for a living entity that something can be of value, that something can be worth seeking. We judge the value of a thing by whether it is good or bad for the life of an organism. Life is the standard of value. Now, most living entities act automatically on instinct. Humans, however, operate by choice. We have free will. Furthermore, we don't know automatically what's good or bad for us. We have to learn it. And with humans, there's also the possibility for a dichotomy between what we value and what has value, between what we seek and what is good for us. For instance, we have heroin addicts, alcoholics, gambling addicts, overeaters, people that engage in all types of behaviors that are not good for them. So not only do humans have to learn what is good for them, but we have to choose to pursue the good. This is what gives rise to the subject of morality and explains why humans need it. Furthermore, given the length of human life and the conceptual nature of human consciousness, we must codify the values that we're going to pursue, that are going to further our lives. Otherwise, we can a code of values adopted by the view of morality anyway. Life gives rise to value in both senses in which I have defined the term. An organism's life determines what is of value to it. In other words, life is the standard of value. As morality refers to a code of values adopted by choice, it is only to humans that morality applies. As each organism's life is its standard of value and moral values apply only to humans, human life is the standard of moral value. Now, to return to the subjects of rights. Given that human life is the standard of moral value, and given that people have to choose to be moral, to act in furtherance of their lives, they must have the right to take those actions they judge to further it, so long as they respect the equal rights of everyone else. That's because we cannot have contradictions. I cannot claim rights for myself, but deny them to Sarah or JimBob. So, in other words, how can people not have a moral claim, a moral entitlement, a right to that which makes morality both necessary and possible? Now, if someone acts in violations of a person's rights, that person has the right to use force to stop the violation. And that gets to the crux of it. In practice, rights define when force is appropriate. They demonstrate that self-defense is a moral act. Now, note,
he's not
my
really
task
answering
here
the
was
prompt.
to demonstrate. It's not to elucidate all the implications of rights, nor to describe the societal conditions necessary for rights to be protected, or to describe the governmental systems that are necessary to do so. I also don't have to lay out a complete system of morality, including the values and virtues it entails. To make my case, all I have to demonstrate is that morality is factual. Now, to anticipate some possible objections to my theory. My opponent may argue that this isn't how people normally think of morality, but my manner of discussing morality dates back to ancient China and ancient Greece. It's completely in the realm of what morality is. So I think that that objection will miss the mark. He may assert that morality has to be dictated by an external entity, such as God, but that assumes the very thing, or at least one of the very things that's in question. He may say that rights don't exist. After all, we don't see them, we can't touch them, we can't point to them. But rights are a relational concept. They explain something that occurs when human beings live amongst each other. Similarly, friendship, couples, enemies, all these things are relational concepts. We cannot see them, we cannot touch them, but they nevertheless exist. Now, another objection may be is my opponent may assert what he believes to be the logical conclusion or a logical conclusion and implication of my theory of rights. And this will likely be something that's detestable to most people. And thus, what he'll try to do is to negate the validity of my argument by pointing to a conclusion that people find unacceptable. But that's not how we do things. We don't assess arguments by assuming a conclusion. We assess conclusions by the strength of the argument. And with that, I will turn it over. I'll give up the rest of my time.
Where your rights come from. In the opener, I heard more opinions about what he thinks morality is. It's actually the case that even if he produces a proof for rights existing, it wouldn't follow that we ought to follow them just definitionally because they exist. So you could focus on both, of course. Now, in some of the opener there, he said the theory of morality. He then went to value, seeking and gaining, desirable. He did not make a distinction between one human who values one thing, they desire, let's say, to live peaceful, and another group of people who desire conflict and terrestrial gain and warfare. Both we've seen in the story of humanity. Michael didn't make a distinction of which values we ought to follow. He merely defined what a value is for people, which is seeking and gaining. Obviously, there's a disparity between people and what they desire. He said he reasons through observation that rights exist or that morality exists. He mentioned lions. He said that being a predator, he said having predators is not good for them. Well, being a predator is actually good for predators. So one could even argue that having predators is actually good for the prey. They build up defenses. They learn how to respond to the natural world. This would include human beings as well. There are predators who are human beings. There are human beings who are prey to other human beings. There are human beings who are prey to other animals that aren't human beings. This still doesn't tell us where rights come from. This still doesn't tell us why we ought to even acknowledge rights as some sort of moral position at all. He also mentioned furthering their life, so long as. Now he slipped in this conditional, which is unjustified. He said, do what you want, further your life, so long as you don't violate the thing in question that you didn't produce a justification for, which is rights. He also said morality, he basically tried to make a deduction that said morality, or without rights, morality wouldn't be really possible from that position. That's actually not true. Rights are in fact fairly a recent innovation. And there have been historical accounts of civilizations that had a sense of deontology or duties without this notion of entitlements. In fact, it was more based on what your duty was in society. That's what gave you what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do, a sense of duties. So society with duties could actually flourish without even appealing to or inventing the concept of rights, which is fairly modern, and I would argue more strictly an Enlightenment fixture. The other part here is this idea that rights just exist, you reason them from looking. Well, rights don't exist in all places, so how do you look at nature or reality and determine that rights exist? For instance, how do you demonstrate rights exist in a place that doesn't acknowledge them? Do you have the right to invade a country that rejects the existence of rights? Do you have a right to do that? Without a state, let's say, on what basis? Sorry, you're not a libertarian. I would argue, I would restate what a right is. He did say, I think he can correct me if I remember correctly. He does acknowledge that they're kind of an entitlement. You're entitled to something. The problem with this is, to be more strict about what a right actually is a set of permissions and restrictions on behavior that are set by a collective of men with guns. That's all a right is. Anything you point to that's a right that you think is a right is merely a temporary set of behaviors you're either allowed to do or not allowed to do that's completely governed and met with force by a collection of men, right? You don't get to choose ultimately sometimes what these permissions are and aren't. You know, you're lucky if you get some sort of pathway to influence what these permissions are. Can I do this? Can I do this? No, I can't. Okay, I don't have a right to do that. The question of animals, notice that he did make the distinction between animals and humans. He didn't though give an ontological distinction between animals and humans, such that humans have this concept of rights, or that we ought to acknowledge rights, or somehow they're present for humans but not present for lions. There's no distinction. He merely described animals as being subject more or less to their own instincts and involuntary responses to stimuli, and then he grants himself this higher position of humanity, as if we've escaped the animal kingdom at some metaphysical level. He did not provide a metaphysical account for what distinguishes a human being from all other animals. I assume he's going to say reason itself. However, reason itself still doesn't give you a moral position. Why ought we not do X? Why ought we value rights? Regardless, the question of morality is still largely irrelevant. It's parallel. It could be a secondary argument. But the question of how do you demonstrate rights exist in any meaningful way? That's what I want to hear first. The next argument is, why ought we value or acknowledge these rights? If it's the case that you can't demonstrate rights exist, then the topic of the debate of where do rights come from is a failed debate, because you have to demonstrate where rights come from. What is the ontology of rights? It seems to me that Michael is reasoning that rights exist because he prefers a system where you pretend rights exist. That doesn't tell us where rights come from. If he's saying that rights are merely a construction, a conceptual invention by humans that aren't actual, but we should actually live as if they are actual, then he's basically conceded the debate that rights don't come from anywhere. They're just fictional, imaginary things that we probably should use the coercive methods to uphold and defend. With that said, I would love for Michael to continue and maybe give us an account of how he gets rights from reasoning. Where do you produce rights from reasoning?
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, hold on just a second. Thank you, gentlemen, for the opening statements. And a kind reminder, we're going to do it slightly different tonight, only because we are on a time constraint to accommodate. So we will go for about another hour and 15 minutes or so, and then we will read and respond. We'll do closing statements. We will read and respond to just a few super chats. I'm going to choose just 20 and up this evening, only for purposes of time's sake. We'll get through anything under that a little later into open panel, and then we will open the panel up, and we'll have some fun and go from there. Gentlemen, the floor is open.
Okay, so first, he said that this is not a debate about morality, it's a debate about rights. The problem is, right is a moral concept. It means a moral claim to something. Now, he made the claim that rights are a list of permissions that have to be granted by an entity. The problem is, my definition of rights, and I can provide it later on my X page, comes from numerous dictionaries, comes from artificial intelligence, Grok, as well as Google. It comes from Samuel Johnson's dictionary from 1755. It's in philosophical dictionaries. A right, in the context we're talking about, it's a moral or just claim. So in order to show that human beings have rights, you have to first have a moral theory, which is why I did that. I nowhere said, as he said, that in order to have morality, you have to have rights. No, it's exactly the opposite. You have to have morality in order to have rights.
Okay,
So
Michael.
hold on one second.
That's a lot. That's a lot right there.
You said a lot, so I have to address everything that you said.
I want to start with at least one thing. Is the only definition you're using for rights is just a moral claim to something?
A right is a moral or a just claim. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. How do you determine something's just?
Well, how do you determine? Because justice also is a moral concept.
That's circular.
No, it's not. You have to go back to morality. You have to have a theory of morality.
So rights are a moral claim that's just, and I ask you what's just, and you say that which is moral.
That's not what I said. I said a right is a moral claim or a just claim, but it ultimately traces back to morality. I didn't say a moral claim is a just claim. I said a right is a moral claim. Now, also, he said that I only defined value in terms of that which you seek to gain or keep. That's false. I'd also defined value. I started off by saying it would be in two ways. The second way was any object or quality desirable as a means or end in itself. And I said life gives rise to that concept. Why? Because living entities have to act to sustain themselves. Some things harm them, some things are beneficial to them. In the latter case, you have things that are of value to them. There's things that are of value to living organisms. In other words, there's things that are desirable, there's things that are
hold on a second.
Seeking.
This guy is making absolutely no sense. He started from, this is what I think his problem is, and this happens a lot with pretty much any political ideology or any type of ideology at all, is you start at the conclusion and work your way backwards to make it make sense. So like he started with the conclusion of, I need to make rights work without the existence of like it being an entitlement based on force, or without the existence of God. There's a few other different ways that you can come about how you define rights. But he was like, I need to find a way that's not any of those and then work my way backwards to make the argument make sense. And it's not really working.
Hold on a second. Can you give a living organism example? Let's say a bat.
Sure.
Are you claiming that you're making the claim that a bat actually values things?
No, that's not what I said at all.
Okay. You said living organism.
I never said, you're talking about value in the case of a person that values something. Mm-hmm. The definition of value as desirable or worth seeking is entirely factual. It has nothing to do with the bat's consciousness or the lion's consciousness. There are nevertheless things that are of value to them. You're using value in a different sense because there's multiple senses.
Desire is a thought about a thought. How do you distinguish for an animal the difference between an instinct that's an automatic response to stimuli and a desire?
Actually, what I said was it's desirable, and desirable means worth seeking. So the animal doesn't actually have to want anything. The point in the discussion is that it's going to seek things out, and there are things that are good for it. There's things that will sustain its life. That is what has value.
Okay, so the question of what is a right, the only definition I got was a moral claim to something, to X. A moral claim, right? It's just a moral claim, right? So if I say I have a moral claim to the neighboring country to take its resources, I have a moral claim. Sure. How do you distinguish from your concept of rights whether or not I have a right to that as a moral claim?
Okay, well, that is why you need a theory of morality. Now, notice that in the theory of morality, all we stated was that life is the standard of value and that a code of values adopted by choice is a moral code, right? So we're not arguing about the actual implications of rights or what is a right or what's not a right. All I'm arguing right now is that rights actually exist, that
That's
they're
a
not a
question of
matter of
what a right
opinion.
is, though.
Yeah,
right?
no, hold on. What I'm saying is I told you that a right is that I stated the fundamental right that a person has to have, is entitled to act in ways that that person judges to be moral. But because of the law of contradiction, because you can't just say, well, I can do, whatever I want, he cannot deny others the same right. Now, you might say, well, there's implications.
This is basically the non-aggression principle. I don't know why okay, so he's not a libertarian, but he's making a very libertarian argument for what rights are. He's saying that because you can do a thing and that thing doesn't prevent another person from doing a thing, that's a right. That's just the non-aggression principle. So he keeps saying I'm not a libertarian, but he's making a very libertarian argument.
Of this further down the line, and we can get into that if you want. But for the present discussion, all I have to demonstrate is that there is a factual morality, and that flows from that are moral claims. Once you have morality, the morality that I'm talking about, you have moral claims.
I understand, but you neither have morality and you neither have the thing called a right, because if you're just defining a right to mean a moral claim, you're basically begging the question for what the moral system is. I agree that if you say we ought to value rights, we ought to be consistent, which is a larger claim you're making. We ought to be consistent and avoid contradictions, which that alone isn't justified from your view.
Okay, well,
so I would
hold
ask
on.
you
No.
Dude, you just
no,
went for you just went for a
I'm-
long time. Let me just get through it, okay?
Yeah.
So I'll ask you a more pointed question
Sure.
that you can't really evade the same way, okay?
I didn't evade anything. That's the first thing.
You definitely did.
Anything.
Do I have the right to invade a country that doesn't acknowledge rights?
Okay, the question is irrelevant to the topic at hand.
Okay, all right.
Entirely
How did I know
irrelevant.
you dodge that?
It's not a dodge. It's
I
because
would,
it's
I would,
definitely a
I'm going to
dodge.
say that I would be agreeable that it actually is, because if the topic is whether rights, where do rights come from, and we're discussing from one country to another, if it doesn't exist in one country but it exists in
Hold on.
another,
No.
why is
No.
that? So I am agreeable that it is on topic.
No. Here's the problem. You have to first establish that rights exist, and then you can see the problem, Sarah, is you're thinking of rights in terms of different governments in different states. What I am talking about is individual rights, the individual's right to do certain things. Now, that implies that individuals obviously can form together and do certain things. But the point is first to establish right. Now, he says I didn't point to a moral theory. The fact of the matter is I absolutely did. I define morality.
When?
It's a code of values adopted by choice to guide human behaviors.
That's not a foundation, dude.
Hold on. It absolutely
That's a definition. That's a definition.
Yeah, it's a definition.
That's not a grounding. That's not a system.
Hold on. It's a definition derived from observation of how people behave, or how anything behaves. We see, and then you said, furthermore, I just wanted to touch on this first. You said that I didn't differentiate between humans and animals, but I actually did, because I said that humans operate on instinct while humans have free will, and that's what gives rise to the science of morality.
Okay,
morality is just the name that we've given.
Michael, even if I granted you free will for the human, right?
Sure.
It doesn't follow that because humans have free will that they ought not violate other free will. You have to tell me from your system why ought a human not violate another human's free will?
Okay. So now to do that, we're going to really have to dive into ethics. Are we prepared to do that and switch the topic from rights to ethics?
Well, I'm sure
it's not switching the topic.
The problem is, like, I would define a right as just a set of entitlements people are given in certain countries by their government.
But that's not the definition of rights. You can make up whatever you want.
I'm
that's
giving
not
an
how rights
example.
defined.
No, I'm giving an example, Michael. You failed to give an example. You merely said, when I asked what is a right, you said a moral claim, and I said, well, what's a moral claim? And you said a claim that's morally just. And
No. That's not what I said. You're misrepresenting what I said.
Give me an example of something that's a right.
At the very beginning, in my opening statement, right, I said that life is the standard of value. Human life is the standard of moral value. And I explained why human life is a standard of moral value.
Why is human life valuable?
I said it's the standard of value.
Why? You're assuming it's valuable. Why is
No,
it
I'm
valuable?
absolutely, no, I'm not actually. What I'm saying to you is that that all life, any living entity, the way that you judge of what is of value to it is what is good or bad for it. Once you have a living entity, you have an entity that acts. You have things that are good for it. You have things that are bad for it. This applies to any living entity across the board, any single one.
That's not a moral claim. That's
No,
a
I didn't. Hold on. I didn't say
pragmatic
it was.
claim,
No,
right?
no,
You're,
no, 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 no.
what do
Jim
you
Bob,
mean?
I didn't say that
Okay,
was moral.
I know.
You're
I'm
Gentlemen,
just
misrepresenting
I
me.
think I just want to make sure I'm understanding both of you the same way. Michael, I believe you're coming from a more individual approach, right? The human right is as an individual, as is, right? And then
Sure.
JimBob, you're viewing it from the standpoint of what is given to us in terms of like what our government allows or our societal culture norms, so on and so forth, correct?
I don't think he
I'm
is.
basically asking him a very pointed question, right? If what's good for a lion is to be a predator, if it's good for a human based on their subjective goals to be a predator, why is that morally wrong given that your standard is what's good for the organism?
Because, but this is a different question. You first asserted that I'm saying that animals acting is a moral question, which it's not. Morality only comes into play once you have choice, once you can choose things. That's where morality comes into play. Now, you said to me just now, well, what if somebody values this? Well, so people can value all kinds of things. That's why in my opening statement, I said there can arise a dichotomy in human behavior between what they value and what has value. And I gave several examples. For instance, there was a time in my life when I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I valued getting stoned. I valued getting drunk. Obviously, those things were harmful to me. So you had a dichotomy between what I valued and what was of value to me. So if you say you have a human being, what if he values being a predator? Well, what if he does? It still remains to be seen and argued whether or not being a predator is actually in that human being's best interest, if it actually furthers his life. And also in my opening statement, I said that being given the nature of human consciousness, which is conceptual, we have to think in principle. And I said, given the nature of the length of life, that humans have to act long term. So therefore, you'd have to show in a given case what is actually in the interest, what is actually going to further that human
Is
being's
it
life.
possible? Is it possible that the best thing
He
for
just
a particular
totally
society
didn't
is
answer
to
the
not
question.
acknowledge rights?
No.
How? Tell me how that's the case.
Well,
Definitionally.
hold on. The problem with your question again is you're already jumping to a political organization and you're saying we have a society. What I'm arguing is that rights form the basis of a just society. You first have to establish rights. Now, if you're asking me, this is a broad
No.
question you're asking about whether or not a society can flourish if it doesn't respect rights. And for that, I'll just point to Maoist China, Stalinist Russia, Nazi Germany, fascist Italy. I mean, we can go on and on and on with the countries that didn't respect rights and see how they panned out. But that doesn't have anything to do with the factual nature of rights.
So you're saying you're arguing because the whole purpose of the debate is for you to demonstrate to me in the audience that rights actually emerge from reason. But if it's the case,
no, I've never said that.
You said
You
that
keep saying that. I
where do
never
rights
said
come
that.
from?
Yeah, you didn't
Rights
use those
stem
words.
from the nature of human beings.
But you
and
said
the fact that they live amongst other human beings. The nature of human beings as moral entities.
That
is
doesn't
what
tell
is-
me where rights come from.
I
You're just
just
saying
told
that,
you.
You're just
Hold
saying
on.
that, dude. It did.
Are you going to keep
hold on.
interrupting, or are you going to ask a question and let me answer?
You're making one claim at a time. Okay, it's fair for me to combat one claim at a time. Isn't it the case that civilizations existed before the concept of rights?
Sure.
Okay, so there you have civilizations sustaining themselves for whatever amount of time without assuming rights. So maybe civilizations had a set of obligations and duties, and they didn't have this concept of rights. Okay,
Hold on.
so if that's the case, I'm asking you a very pointed question. How do you distinguish what's missing in one society that doesn't acknowledge rights and one that does? If you're going to say rights are produced in one and the other, is it just agreement?
Hold on. I'm not saying that right. I've never said rights are produced in one or the other. My claim from the start is that rights are factual. I explained why in my opening statement. You can laugh and you can, pander to the
Give
audience
me
and do
one
whatever
right
you'd
that's
like.
factual.
The right of a human being to act in furtherance of his own existence.
Unless another human being comes along and stops him.
Factual.
Wait, they have the right to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Can I take that right with force?
Hold on, you're switching the question.
Over,
No. You can
Can
violate that.
question.
You can violate that right with force. You can violate right with force.
Begging.
The entire reason we argue for rights is to convince people. Obviously, if you have guns, you can violate somebody's right, JimBob. That's
No,
an
rights come from
obvious
people with
claim.
guns, set of permissions.
No. Rights can be violated by people with guns. Of course, the whole idea, what we want to accomplish is to subordinate might to right, to put might on the side of individual rights, to protect individual rights. If nobody could violate rights, there'd be no need to have the concept.
Look,
the whole reason we have the concept is because people can violate rights.
Look, I just gave an example. Like you said, right, that people, just for merely existing as an organism with choice, they have rights. And I said, isn't it possible for someone to just take away that choice?
Well, hold on. I'm a human being with a hand. Somebody can chop off my hand.
That's a reference.
But a hand still exists.
No,
but a hand still
is
exists.
A reference that's physical.
The hand
you
still
just
exists.
debunked yourself,
Okay.
dude.
No, I did not debunk anything.
Is a hand physical?
Hold on. Does friendship
hand
exist?
physical?
JimBob, does friendship exist? Yes or no?
A friendship? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Friendship's not physical.
Yeah. Why did you point to a hand then?
No, hold on. I used hand as an example, but then you said hand has to be physical.
Do you have
you
a right
implied
to
that an existent has to be physical.
Do you have
but
a
then
right
you
to a
said friendship.
friendship?
Wait, hold on. No, but that's irrelevant to the conversation.
Okay, cool.
It's entirely irrelevant.
I get it.
You're coming at me with entirely irrelevant questions. First, you entirely misrepresented my opening statement. You said I didn't provide multiple definitions to the term rights. You said that I didn't define morality.
You didn't provide coherent ones.
I said that morality needs rights. All things I didn't say,
Michael.
And now you come at me with multiple
Michael,
questions.
I asked you for a
specific
specific example of a right that is you just
and I gave it to you. I gave it to you.
And it's what someone can pursue whatever they want, right?
A person has the right to make choices that they think are going to further their own
I
interests.
have a choice. I think I have a choice to steal from people to further my idea of what progress is for me.
Sure.
You have a right to do that?
No.
Okay, cool. So you just debunked yourself. That's a
I did not, because if you go back, no, I did not. It's not a contradiction.
Of course it's a contradiction.
No, hold on, notice.
I want to gather some more understanding of why it doesn't work based on
Sarah,
what
can
you're
I
saying,
answer his
Michael.
question first? And then
That's what I'm
answer.
asking. That's what I'm asking is for you to explain it.
No, I will, but can I answer his question first, and then I'll answer whatever question you want to ask?
That was my question. I wanted to allow you.
So note that he said I contradicted myself and said, therefore, I've debunked myself. Note also that earlier on, I said that a person has the right to make choices that he judges to be in furtherance of his life, as long as he respects the equal right of others to do the same. No, hold on. Can you, dude, you keep interrupting me. What's up with that?
Hold on, let him finish.
What's up with that? So my point was that to assert a right for myself and to deny it to others would be a contradiction. That's why I said that's one of the reasons. I mean, there's multiple others, but that's the relevant one here. It would be a contradiction. JimBob said that I didn't say that I contradicted myself when I didn't, but then he said contradictions debunk. So people be the judge.
Michael, the person who's aggressing denies that rights exist for themselves and others. They're winner take.
Who cares?
You just
that's irrelevant.
I let you talk, right? Now you're interrupting me. You just said a person has the right to pursue their wants and desires so long as they don't aggress. And I said, why can't they aggress, right? And you said because it would be a contradiction because that person's assigning rights for themselves and not acknowledging the others. I'm saying no, there's a hypothetical that happens all the time where the person aggressing totally denies rights for themselves and others. They merely say, I'm going to get mine. That's it.
Okay.
They get mine. They don't talk about rights. They just want to get there.
Okay.
Right?
So it's
not a contradiction.
Let's step back and look at this from this point of view. We're looking at two people. If I assert one person has rights, I have to assert that the other person has rights.
Uh-huh.
Both people have rights. Neither has the right to violate the right of the other, because to assert that
Why?
would
just
be
not
a
hear what I just said?
contradiction. That would be a
That's only a
contradiction.
contradiction for people who believe in rights.
No, it's not. No,
Yes, it
because
is.
rights are factual. They're not
No, that's
dependent
begging
on
the
belief.
question.
It's not begging the question. I don't think
Where
you
is
know what
where
begging
is a
the
right
question means.
factual in a society that denies rights?
Because the right is not dependent on what the government says or
Where
what
are
anybody else
rights?
says.
Dude, just
I
answer the
just
question.
hold on. I've just told you. Rights
You're not answering my
emanate.
question,
I've
dude.
answered it 15 times.
Where are
Right?
rights in a
I think
place that
Jim.
denies rights?
I think JimBob, I think you're not satisfied with his answer, and I can understand why, because you're expecting a specific answer and he's giving something different. I think you're both coming from two very different perspectives, and it's what's causing the conflict in understanding. Michael, you're welcome to continue on.
I kind of forgot where I was, but it doesn't matter. I'll go back to the original thing. Rights are factual descriptions of what human beings have, right? And I
What?
stated it multiple times.
That's
If
not
a
even a
right is a
sentence.
moral
That's
claim to something, which is the definition of the term, a human being has to have the right to that which makes morality possible. His life, his freedom of choice, his rational faculty, all these things. But to assert one person has the right to do these things, but another person doesn't, or this person can violate this person's right, would be a contradiction.
Yeah.
But all those things can literally happen. Just because it's a contradiction doesn't mean it's literally happening.
For people who acknowledge rights, it does
No,
not a
you
contradiction.
don't have to
Dude,
acknowledge
I just let you
anything.
talk. Shut up for a second.
I'm agreeable. Hold on.
Look, the person who denies rights exist for themselves and others, it's not a contradiction. It's only a contradiction if someone assumes rights exist for themselves. I'm pointing to a scenario, right, where the person and the group, they just go, what are you talking about, rights? Where is the right a fact in the world, right? Trees exist. That's a fact in the world. Lions exist. That's a fact in the world. I want stuff. That's a fact in the world. There are people who want stuff, right? Right? They can act on those desires. That's factual. You're just saying rights are factual, and you're not telling us where, because facts isn't the case that facts relate to reality in some way?
Absolutely.
Okay. So where is the reality of rights existing if two people, one can deny them and you can affirm them? The one denying says, hey, dude, I don't see how rights exist if all you're referring to is people want to pursue things, right? They just want to pursue things. There's a group of people who want to pursue, they're warlords, right? They're going to use force and coercion and all this kind of stuff, aggression. They're going to get what they want. You're going to say, hey, bro, you're in a contradiction. They go, no, Michael,
Sure.
I'm sorry. I don't acknowledge rights. Where's the contradiction?
No. They're not
No.
contradicting. They're not contradicting themselves.
Thank you.
The contradiction is if we're having a discussion about who has rights, we would have to say there's equal rights on both sides. We would then identify the aggressors that you're talking about as rights violators.
Okay. So
That's
does
all.
a country have the right to not acknowledge rights?
No.
They don't.
No.
So do you have the justification to invade a country that doesn't acknowledge rights?
It's a very complex question that you're asking. And I'll tell you why.
Pretty simple.
Hold on. If you're asking me, would a rights respecting government, right? Would that government have the right to remove another government that doesn't respect rights? And I would say, yeah. But again, that's not relevant to what we're talking about.
That's a contradiction.
It's not a contradiction.
It is, because it's removing the person, the country's choice.
It's defense
It's violating
of
your
others,
choice, dude.
It's defense of others. If that country is violating people's rights,
no,
you said they were violating rights.
No, they didn't acknowledge rights. Okay, isn't it possible, Michael, that?
Okay, I misunderstood the question. You're saying, okay, so you're saying they.
Let me give you the hypothetical.
Okay, go
There's
ahead.
a country that denies the Enlightenment concept of a right. Right. This sort of privileged position. You're able to have this. You're able to have that. Entitlements without any duties. It's totally possible for a country to acknowledge duties as their main thread of behaviors. And you could say you're violating your duty. You're not fulfilling your duty. And that's where they start judging people. Right. That's how they sort of That's how they organize their law, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need the concept of rights to actually facilitate a society that operates based on duties. So if there's a country that only operates based on duties, and you are a neighboring country that operates based on rights, if they deny rights in their country, you said the denial of rights would justify the invasion of that country.
What I said was, if that government is violating rights, which I assume they were by your question, but you might be,
They don't accept that rights exist. They can't
don't
violate
have
something they don't
to.
believe in.
Yeah, of course you can.
Do you believe in sin?
JimBob.
Do you believe in sin? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Can I sin?
Believe in sin. I believe in sin.
Can I sin?
No, from you can't violate.
No. I'm asking you as a fact. Can I sin?
Can you sin? From my perspective, yes, but I can't do anything.
As a
to you,
factual matter, can I sin? From your
Yes, you can.
Okay.
From my perspective.
It wouldn't be a factual matter. Okay, we're going to go back to whatever for a little while. This guy is not very smart, unfortunately. I was hoping he would be smarter. Okay, and we are... Let's refresh this.
Listing your vacation.
And then we're going to go back like 40 minutes. Right? Let's see, how far ahead did we get? About 40 minutes ago. All right, now we've got some room to play with.
That you were traumatized, but the fact that you just wanted to have sex with a lot of good-looking guys.
I mean that, absolutely.
So,
That can be healing. That can be healing in ways.
Right, they're still doing the silly body count
if a
thing.
guy said, like, oh, I just had a really bad breakup and she really broke my heart, and, you know, like, oh, I'm back on the streets, you know, the boys will be like, yeah, get back on the streets, you know, but, like, when women do that, like you said, it's kind of, were you really hurt? Like, is that really a trauma response, or are you just being wild?
Well, what
Coping.
it is, yeah, it's coping. What it is they're
Some of
going,
it's coping.
They're doing this. They're going, look, my dating chances drastically go down because I've slept with like, and now the numbers are fucking astronomical, like 50, 60, 70 guys, right? I've slept with that many guys.
You have?
When people,
Wait.
when people realize that.
60 to 70 chicks. I mean, dudes.
Boy, you got me, Brian. So
Clip it and ship it,
that's
boys.
that's what they'll say, right?
Yeah.
And so if they do, right, their chances for having like the kind of more high status man, especially in their 30s, is going to greatly decrease in comparison to women who haven't. So if that's the case, like, they have every reason to make an excuse to cope about it, to be like, no, it's not my fault. It was some trauma that I had that got treated, this type of thing.
Yes and no. It's if you're still engaging in that behavior. So if there's a quality man who's healed and he's ready for marriage and he's dating a woman who obviously you can tell if someone still like doesn't love themselves and they're acting out and they're seeking love and validation from other men, then sure. But
I
if
don't
someone's
think men get healed. I think they get tired.
You can do it.
Yeah, I think they get tired.
We do NLP and hypnotherapy with my guys.
Hypnotherapy's bullshit,
You
by
don't
the
think
way.
sex?
There's a little bit. All it is hypnotherapy.
bullshit.
All it is that you go in and you can rewire or reframe some memories so that you're not as freaking loaded by
It's the
them.
least scientific form
Sure.
of especially any sort of hypnosis.
But it's kind of fun.
Total nonsense. But the thing is interesting about this is like, it's not that men are coping or get healed. They're not healed. They just get tired of it. So playing the field for men who can, right? It's fun for a little bit, and they just get sick of it. And it's not that they're healed from shit. They weren't traumatized, right? They're like, what are they traumatized from? Oh, I had sex with a bunch of beautiful women. Oh my God, the trauma. Oh, the trauma.
No, well, that's not where trauma comes from.
Of course they're not traumatized.
That's not trauma.
Right? They're not traumatized by it at all. They're sick of it, right? And the same thing with women. They do get, in some ways, traumatized by women, but mostly it's just they're sick of women's bullshit, right?
Well, sure, but that's not trauma.
Well, what is trauma for them?
Trauma is when you're like, if you're getting actually abused, beaten, hurt. Like I've had clients that were like, for men, actually dated narcissistic women, which is surprising not surprising for me, but a lot of people don't realize that men can be in abusive relationships.
Of course.
Right? They're
Yeah,
psychologically abused, physically abused.
Yeah, and they can hold those scars over. They can go through terrible divorces.
But no,
and
dating a
have
bunch
those
of women
scars
and
too.
but I'm talking, when I talk trauma, I mean that. I don't mean the superficial coping shit. I mean actual,
Yeah,
like.
but the amount of women who express that they've been traumatized, and then you find out what they've been traumatized by is just the same regular rigmarole shit that most every human being has to go through. I'm like, that's not trauma.
Yeah.
That's cope.
Oh yeah, because right now, with you see like influencers right now, I have such a we have
Well,
it.
actually, women in the field. So
Sure.
can you always make the case, oh, the other sex also engages in that? It's like, yeah, but to the degree of it, it's not even close.
Well, yeah, unless they Google it. You can Google all day long and not have to go to someone and spend money and $300 a pop to go to a psychologist to learn the jargon. You could just Google it online. It's
true.
It's everywhere on Instagram, you know it.
Well, psychology is the study of the mind, right? I've never even I don't consider it even scientific. I never have. It has scientific elements for data gathering and things like this, but it's not itself a science. That's why it's considered a soft science.
Soft science, yeah.
I would just consider it not science.
They learn more and more. It's nice that it grows. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was in psychology courses, and we thought back then that you only use 10% of your brain, and I mean that's what we learned back then. They didn't know, and there's so much more. It's just a growing
that's because
thing.
What happens is a sociological study will come out that has no reputations to it, has not been replicated, but because it's the most modern study, everyone will reference it as though it's gospel. Within 2 years, the reputation comes out, but what? Everybody inside their mind, they already have this bad information, right?
Right, yeah.
They already have
exactly.
the bad information.
I mean, look at.
I still hear people say we only use 10% of our brain.
Oh, you
I
do?
still hear people say that left-handed
Oh, yeah,
people are
all
more
the time.
creative. I still hear people say
I hear people say that all the
are
time.
generally taller. I see people say all sorts. I see
With
people.
blue eyes.
I see people say all kinds of crazy shit, right? That has been refuted, repudiated, completely decimated for years and years and years. But because it's allowed to permeate within the decade of reason that these people are in, they hear it, it sticks. They're not looking for reputations years later. That's the problem with psychology. It's a complete building block of lies.
Psychology, but that's the thing, is that psychology isn't that building block of lies. It's the fact that you can take a zoom out and look at the fact that that's a pattern. We talked about patterns earlier. Patterns I do agree, patterns actually repeat. It's what
Okay, boring conversation.
for a long time. And like I was fucking.
It's unpredictable. You can't quantify it. You can't. You have more.
Too bad. Something simple, right? I don't reckon.
How old are you, Felicity? Sorry.
I'm 19.
19.
Oh my God. Okay,
How old did you think I was?
I mean, in your 20s at least. You know, you look very mature. You're closer to my son's age than mine.
I get like mixed opinions. Like some people think I look really young. Some people think I'm like 24. I'm like, I'm not 24. I just turned 19 like not even a month ago. So
happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
So does body count still matter for like your age group? Because I'm old, so
I know, right? But then again, as we get older, we don't care. Even the guy, I gotta say this: the guys that I coach, honestly, once they start healing and stuff, they literally don't give a. They don't care. There's some people that will, I'm sure, of course, and there's some people that will, but there's sometimes it's just you care more about the person.
Yeah.
I've honestly never encountered someone who was like, oh, I have an issue with body count. Now I don't date very often.
I
but
do.
even Still.
I have not.
I would prefer someone to have like the same body count as me if I'm gonna date them serious.
Well, you're younger too. I can't imagine a 19-year-old being like, I've had 500 women. You're like, yeah, in what time?
Right?
In what time? Are you going to school?
Yeah.
Do you have hobbies?
If you're dating like an older person who had like
that whatever put it in me but then I was doing odd jobs. I had a great resume, but I had to heal so much, and then eventually I was debating on going back to getting my master's and PhD, but I didn't like the idea of being in school for that long, and so I just waited. And then I had a friend of mine call, and she was like, hey, we've got a friend, she's a dating coach for men, I think you guys would be a great fit, because I was always helping people. I was always helping men, I was always guiding, I was always giving advice, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, this is a thing. And then for a while, no.
Jesus, Brian, can you take over the show? Ask some damn questions. This is so boring.
Questions about it, because I have my own blind sides, right? I have my own like things that'll come up. I'm gonna go to a guy, because guys, you guys do read men.
Pretty good. Women often will give advice nobody fucking asked for, right? Nobody asked for it. that women generally.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't just see that. I don't are always inundated with women, right? I literally don't give a fuck about.
I think women.
That's what they actually are thinking in their brains.
I think
intercognitive
cognitive dissonance.
because
Yes. Like 2 p.m. when there's
advice on entire market share of Bud Light, spearheaded by a woman. Right, spearheaded by a woman trying to sell this beer, not because she understood.
Dylan a woman.
What's that?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Now they're finally.
And they got the entire planet to smoke. And they got the entire planet to do all of these other things, which are.
This isn't the greatest argument right now.
Well, actually, it is.
No, I'm kidding.
It is.
I got you.
Imagine you can
imagine all the bad, but you said good advice.
Well, imagine that you can actually get through crafted propaganda, the whole population to smoke. That was men who were able to at least craft that propaganda. It worked for men and women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, and they weren't like, and by the way, that was like the most misogynistic society ever. They weren't.
I think that's what she said was that men were the first ones who could get in that role, and I think that.
So they have, they're a step ahead of women.
That's
in regards
what's
to certain
changing.
roles.
Like I'm an executive chef. When you wouldn't really see executive chefs in a female role. Like now, my fiance is a pilot. Like
women are
changing.
Terrible at marketing.
Oh, actually,
let me give you some advice.
well, how many women are in that marketing field?
Do you remember Bud Light? Bud Light had a massive controversy where they put Mulvaney on a Bud Light beer can, right? And then lost the entire market share of Bud Light, spearheaded by a woman, right? Spearheaded by a woman trying to sell this beer, not because she understood.
Dylan a woman.
What's that?
Well, that depends on, because I know a little bit about your background. That I'm assuming you don't see Dylan Mulvaney as a woman.
Yeah, I see the woman in charge of the marketing campaign as a woman.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't Dylan Mulvaney wasn't in charge of the marketing campaign.
Definitely a woman. Yeah. By any criteria I can think of.
Okay, I didn't know if you were talking about Dylan specifically or if your opinions had changed.
No, the person who put Dylan on the can.
Okay.
That was a female in charge of that. Completely fucked it all up, right? There's multiple marketing campaigns actually I can point to that women spearheaded that they fucked up because they don't take in the male element. They take in the female element. That was a campaign.
I think that's something to learn for
that
sure.
Was a campaign
I'm sure we can point to men.
Video games. That's where this is happening right now. Video games.
Failures as well too, but like you know what I mean on marketing. But there was a study that did come out, and I can't remember the guy's name, so I haven't gotten to say it. But he just there's studies that have come out. We can debate it or whatever, but apparently women make excellent CEOs and better CEOs.
No, they don't.
That's on. There's data on that one.
No, but here's the thing.
You can look on that one. Someone else can Google that.
There's also data on this. There's also data that says that if you have corporations that do diversity hires, they actually do better than corporations that don't. That was a study that came out that I was just debating the other day, till I came into the debate with all of the modern refutations to the study based on, of course, the new evidence which emerged when they went back to replicate that study. Turns out those companies were already doing great. They just had so much money they were able to start playing with
Costco?
There was tons. There was a bunch of Fortune 500 S&Ps.
Right.
They just had so much money that they were able to start playing around with this model.
Right.
That's not a
It wasn't that model made them rich. They were already fucking rich. They just had enough money that they could start playing with the model.
What's the term for that? That's damn, I'm blanking on it. No. You know when like something looks like it's coming from this. There we go. Correlation.
It was a correlation, not a causation. Correct.
Exactly. So just
they actually said like. They took a correlate. They took a correlate and then pretended it was a causation when it wasn't to affirm a bias.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, anytime I look at this stuff, right, I realize that whenever it's led by empathy first, which women usually lead their morality by empathy first, it's usually a massive failure. It's usually a massive failure.
I hope that they mix both. I think that we can learn from both men and women. I agree, because I think that if a woman's just coming in and she's only looking at the empathy, then yeah, absolutely, you're losing it. But if a guy's coming in and he's only looking at one thing as well too, I think that, if you open yourself up and think about different things and new ways of attacking it.
But I wouldn't dispute that. I wouldn't dispute the idea that there's going to be some, so I wouldn't monolith anything. I wouldn't say anything's always an all of anything. But if we look at general trends, what we can see is that women lead with empathy first, right? Men tend to lead with reason first.
Yeah, when I coach differently, like if I coach women, I have to get them to like stop with feeling stuff. It's I just need you forward motion. But with men, I need them stop forward motion because you're making mistakes and not assessing. So I need you intuitive. So men can listen to your gut. You've done it, and you've said it. You right now could look at someone or look at someone's profile and intuitively kind of know, based on logic, based on things, based on whatever. But you could know who that person is, what they're about to do or say, or whatnot, or if they're a good person, decent person, or full of shit.
I've had a significant,
you can have intuition as a
but
man.
I've had significant advantages of having tons and tons of interpersonal conversations with thousands of different people all over the place, right?
So it helps your intuition.
I have significant advantages that the general public would not have when it came to understanding what people are saying, why they're saying it, what type of worldview they're leading from.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that.
No.
And because they don't, right, it's easy enough for me to just say, look, generally women do lead with empathy.
Yes.
And generally men do lead with reason.
Yes.
If that's the case, right, who the fuck would you want in charge of every situation?
Both.
Probably the sex.
I want the
that led
person.
with
I want
reason.
either one that's unlocked both. So for a man, if he's got
Why?
intuition,
What advantage does empathy give you over reason?
No, it's intuition. Think about it as intuition.
No, not intuition. That's not my question. What advantage?
Oh yeah,
does-
Wait, hold up. If a man has empathy, if a man has is able to do forward motion plus empathy, I feel like he's lethal.
What? How? What does the empathy give him?
In the marriage
You really
market,
care about other things.
like if you're in the dating pool, a woman's gonna look for a man who has empathy as well as strength.
EQ.
But if you have reason, couldn't you just fake the empathy?
Who's faking it?
Who's gonna get married to someone who's been faking for that long? And you usually can spot red flags.
So, like the idea, I'll give you this great example of this, right? And almost probably every man will do this, where his woman comes to him with some stupid fucking problem he doesn't give a shit about, but she does, right? She cares about it for whatever reason, and it's literally fucking meaningless. Totally meaningless, means nothing, totally irrelevant, totally nonsensical. Nobody on planet Earth gives a shit. He's like this. He goes, "It's okay, honey." Right? Now, in his mind, I'm going to tell you what he's thinking. What he's thinking in his head is, God, this is fucking stupid, and I hope that you just stop with this fucking shit in the next 20 minutes. That would be great. I got other shit to do. I can't even believe that you're hysterical about this. They're faking empathy.
Well, if you
They're
care,
faking
if you care about
empathy, okay?
Wait, hold up. We have to do that too. Yeah, we know. It's called a relationship.
There you go.
No. I'm kidding. I'm kidding on that one. Don't jump down my throat on that.
Are you actually that way with your wife?
Sometimes. Like there's been times where my wife, for instance, right? Just like every woman on planet Earth, she's been on her period. She's completely irrational, right? Says some stupid ass fucking shit. And I've told her things like, go to your room. Literally go to your room and take a fucking nap.
And she came
until you
back
can
out
act,
that room and
until you
talk
can
to
act
you
like
after?
a fucking human being. Go to your room and take a fucking nap.
I hope she speaks.
And you know what she does? She goes to her room and she takes a
Is
fucking
she
nap. And the next thing I
stronger,
know,
though, too?
she acts like a rational human being.
Does she
again.
speak to you that way too, though? And I mean that in a good way. But do you guys get that as women too
I'll
in our
respond to that.
families?
Yeah, I'll respond.
So
to this.
I'm just saying that it's a good thing.
I'll respond to this. Let us pretend for a moment that for a week out of every month, I completely lost my fucking mind due to hormones and started like, oh, I don't know, ripping doors off of hinges. I'm sure she probably wouldn't be very pleasant about that.
Yes, exactly.
But guess what?
She's like, go take a nap.
because I don't have what is called hormonal lunacy once a month. You don't have to worry about that. Men lead with reason. So no, of course my wife's not going to talk to me like that.
Maybe you might have some reason, but you suppress emotions and you emotionally explode in anger.
You're supposed to suppress emotions.
Yes,
As a man,
absolutely.
you're
Go
supposed
for it.
to.
Suppress. Men out there, suppress. And
Yes,
then hire
suppress.
men.
You don't want to see what happens.
Push it down. You only allow horniness and anger.
Really quick before I move this on, you've been grimacing the entire
And she had such a great point.
You've not been happy.
Come back to us.
What do you think about this terrible misogynist? What a misogynist. Can't believe what I've just heard.
Terrible, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's exactly why I don't turn to men for help or emotional support. What did he actually say? Like, he doesn't care about what the girl is talking about, like her feelings, saying like lunacy, hysterical, all these words. Like, even hysteria, the word etymologically is like anti-women. Like, it's made up by men to saying women are crazy. So, I don't know.
Let me ask you a question. Do men get periods?
No.
Okay, so
No, they do change hormonally.
But no,
We've
they don't.
noticed.
Not
yeah.
like that. No,
you
they
do
don't.
have hormonal frequencies.
Do women? Hang on. Do women one time per month have massive hormonal changes which affect literally how they think?
Yeah.
Not everybody.
Not every woman. You can actually
No, not everybody.
you can actually have smaller.
Like
No,
why
not
do I
everybody.
turn to women for help? It's because like when I feel really sad, I need to have emotional support.
Yeah, you want them to lie to you.
Yeah,
you want them to lie to you.
I can calm down and then like I can reason myself. I can think it through, and also
But see, we don't want them to be lying to us. We want them to have genuine empathy,
Oh,
which
come
they
on.
don't
They
really
lie. Women
have
lie
as
to
much.
each
we all
other
lie. That's fine.
day.
No, we all do lie, of course.
I don't even care
We'll
about
come
that.
right back to this. I need this chat. I'm very sorry I missed it, or a TTS came in 25 minutes ago. I apologize. Normally we're on top of these, but I missed
Rule
it.
21 donated $200.
Thank you, man. I
Women
apologize
with a
for
high
the
body
delay.
count,
6 is high.
6+, have a greater likelihood of cheating, relationship dissatisfaction, can't pair bond, depression. And it's just disgusting. Why would any guy want that?
Actually,
It's a slightly higher likelihood, but there are things you can do to mitigate all of that stuff. Like later on in life.
last part of what that chatter said is the most important part. And it's just disgusting. That's all that needs to be. If it is the case from the man's prism that it's revolting and preferences are fine to have, then that's enough.
Sure, absolutely.
You don't need any
Your
more.
preference.
Your preference.
Your preference.
But that preference is changing. Uneven, where men feel like it's okay for them, where with if a woman has a higher body count, it's a no. I think that's where there's a disconnect, and it just doesn't seem.
Well,
it doesn't seem like fair.
well, here's the
Wait,
thing.
I don't have a
well, let
better
me
word.
ask you a question.
Yeah.
You go on first dates, yeah?
Of course, I go on first.
When's
dates.
the last time you've been on a first date?
It's been a while.
How many first dates have you been on?
In my ripe age, I'm not really sure. I'll say maybe in the last year I've gone on, I don't know, eight.
Okay,
first dates.
who paid for the dates?
The men have. Yeah.
Did you offer?
One time, yes, and I actually paid, and the guy decided
1 in
not to get
7.
anything.
Yeah. And then, but you
One
said.
out of 8.
Oh, wait, and he didn't pay for anything.
He didn't ask for anything when I offered to pay.
Right.
So I was like, all right,
Well,
fine,
that's a
getting
bit-
my own thing.
So, I mean, we can discuss about what's fair, what's unfair, or double standards, or benefits that men receive, benefits that women receive, male privilege, female privilege. You seem to have a double standard as it relates to who pays on the first date, so what's the actual problem?
I don't think it's a double standard. I think
How-
that. Ooh,
Do you pay for dates?
I have.
Okay.
Other than the fact that he didn't order anything, I was very willing to pay
But
for it
okay,
myself.
so 7 of the 8 dates that you went on just this year, the man paid for all of them.
Yes, because
So
he
Why didn't he order anything? That's what I want to know.
asked me out on a date, and I was like, sure.
do you
that'd
ask
be
men
great.
out on dates?
No.
Oh, okay. So conveniently,
No.
it's just very convenient. This whole men should pay on dates. Whoever asks should be the one who pays on dates. But women conveniently never ask men on dates. So your argument as to if your argument is whoever asks should pay would make sense to me if men and women asked each other out at equivalent rates, but they clearly don't. So you're kind of going around the bush as to beating around the bush, or not beating
I'm
around the bush.
actually interested in
but-
how this correlates to my
Well,
thing about body
okay.
count. Why is it
you're-
okay for
sure,
a man
Sure,
to-
So
okay.
here's the example. So you were saying, well, it's kind of okay for men to have a high body count, but when women have a high body count, there's an issue with it. So you claim there's a double standard that exists, right?
Yes.
Right, and you might say, for example, as follows. If a guy himself has a high body count, it would be unfair or unreasonable or hypocritical or a double standard for, as a man with high body count, to desire a woman who has a low body count.
Oh,
But-
so definitely he can desire someone.
Yeah.
I just don't think it should be shamed. Like, oh, it's disgusting.
We're not. I don't think we're talking about. Well,
That's what that was your point. To use that term disgusting to describe a person
that's what I'm
because of
saying.
their
It's like,
human
why is it
experience.
disgusting for the women
no,
to have
well,
a-
I'll explain it. So, for example, body count sort of moves it far away from what a sexual encounter actually is. So, for example, and there could be differentials here. You'll probably respond like, oh, well, a woman could have a high body count, but she's been celibate for 3 years. But I'd point to it like this. For example, here's how it's disgusting. If a woman slept with a different guy the night before and she goes on a date with me and I sleep with her, that's disgusting.
To you.
To most men, that's going to be disgusting if a woman recently slept with another man, especially if she fucked him without a condom, especially if she let him come inside her.
Can I say why?
Sorry.
Can I just ask why?
I'm sorry.
Why do you know that?
Well, I mean, why is
what
it disgusting? Biologically, socially, or emotionally? What is disgusting?
All of the above.
Well,
Okay, can we break those down maybe
sure.
individually?
Let's
I would
start.
love that.
Sure, actually, let's just start with.
I just want
Let's
to say
start with the
really quick,
biological.
personally, I actually wouldn't disagree with you. Now, although I have gone on dates and things like that, I would not disagree with you. I just mean in general, I just want to know why it's okay. I know she wants to discuss it, but I don't disagree. If she was with somebody, went raw, he came in her, whatever, and then goes on another date, and then that's going to happen the very next day with a new person, I'm not in disagreement with you.
The main point I was going to say here is that when it comes to the unfairness, I think you're pointing towards the double standard or the potential hypocrisy. Now, the thing is, my view is, when it comes to both men and women, we are allowed to desire things in a partner, traits in a partner that we ourselves don't possess. So, for example, I wouldn't find it
we only have 10 minutes
a double
of skipping.
standard necessarily or hypocritical if a woman who was poor was attracted to and dated or wanted to date really rich men. I don't think that would be hypocritical or double standard. So a guy who has a high body count, for example, I don't think it would be hypocritical or double standard if, despite him having high body count, he has a preference for women.
That's not really what she's asking, though. She's not asking, like, she already conceded that it doesn't really matter what you've done. You can have whatever preference you want. She's already conceded that. We'll see what she has to. She's probably just going to remind Brian that she already conceded that.
With a low body count.
I think it's different because I think it's.
How would it be different?
Well,
Go ahead.
I think because it's morally. Like if you're loose with yourself with other people, then maybe it's the person that doesn't have as much money. That like your example was of a poor girl. Okay.
No. Go ahead. I have a response though. Go ahead.
Sure. So like if your example is like, okay, there's this poor girl or somebody who's maybe just like a server, she doesn't make a ton of money.
Brian's not a Christian, so I don't think he has anything to ground his morality in, according to Andrew. Oh, Andrew's making a face.
Wants to date someone who makes six figures, who knows, whatever, a multimillionaire. I don't think that that's the same morally. Maybe she hasn't had the same opportunities to somebody a guy that sleeps around.
Okay, so I'll respond to that. So are you stating that when it comes to preferences, people are only entitled to having preferences as it relates to morals? Because women have, one last thing and I'll let you respond. Women have plenty of preferences for men that have nothing to do with morals, and they also have preferences that do relate.
Just
to morals.
relationally, even to just attraction, right?
It sounds like we went off topic from shaming someone, though.
Not really. Like we're still on.
I think it's still somewhat on topic.
Yeah.
It's kind of flow.
But go ahead.
I'm
going to let this come in, but then you can respond.
I think we're way off topic from shaming. That doesn't make any sense.
He donated $200.
Thank you, Christopher Murphy. Sorry for the delay.
You can't reason with these women. They're driven by emotion and are therefore unreasonable. Reason and logic push society, ladies, not your feelings.
That sounds like an emotional response.
But when you go home, right, because when you go home, you want that woman with feelings. You don't want a woman that sits there and is analytical. You don't come home to a pair of boobs that are hard as rocks. You come home to a soft. Some do, and I mean, like I think there's a balance. There's just that balance that we have to.
You make a fine point. I would just give the quick refutation before Brian and the gal get back into it. The only thing I would say is this: it is the case. You are right that men are perfectly happy to have women who lead with emotion in their life if they submit to them.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm more masc in my relationship, and my current partner and fiance, she's more feminine, and she definitely, like...
She submits
to me because, like, I mean, she makes more money than me as a pilot and me as, like, a chef and doing, like, more gig work and stuff like that.
That has nothing to do with what submission is, ultimately. But,
well, no, I definitely know that. But I just mean, like...
Did you want to continue?
If you don't mind just repeating, I kind of lost track of the...
You guys were focused on whether or not it was hypocrisy, Brian.
Oh, because
there was a focus on the higher body count
I think
for
that
men
yeah.
versus women.
I mean, I think that if long term you're looking for somebody, like obviously you're going to want to connect on moral things, on compatibility is a factor in a long term relationship. So yeah, I think that if you're going to be not asking but looking for the preference of somebody who has a lower body count, you yourself should not have been like a hoe as a man.
Well, let me see if I can make a response to this by just asking you a simple question.
Sure.
Would it be a deal breaker for you if you met a man and he had all the right criteria? He was a millionaire, perhaps. He met the attractiveness scale that you wanted. If he had slept with 150 women, but he wanted to settle down with you.
I think if he was ready to settle down, then that's fine as long as he's clean. And now it's just him and I were.
So that wouldn't be a deal breaker, right?
Right.
Okay, but for men, that's a deal breaker.
But for a majority of men, I want to know why.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. So here,
maybe logically.
Yeah.
Make sense.
Well, actually, it should logically make sense. Hypocrisy. People use this word the wrong way. Hypocrisy doesn't mean I'm guilty of the thing in which I'm telling you not to do. That's not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy has a experience of pretending. So let me give you an example. I smoke, but I tell my children not to smoke. Does that make me a hypocrite? Should I tell my 10-year-old they can smoke?
Well, I mean, 10 years old, there's a lot of things you shouldn't do at 10. As a parent,
Yeah, but why?
Hey, I do think that it's confusing for the child.
Yeah,
if
but
you're
the
telling me not to
pretending,
smoke.
that's why it's not hypocrisy. Pretending is what's the hypocrisy. So if I were to say it's wrong for anybody on planet Earth to smoke and then smoked, I'd be a hypocrite. But if I'm like a fat person, let's say I'm really fat, right, and I'm around another fat person and say, hey, you should lose some weight, right? That's not hypocrisy. That person actually maybe should lose some weight. You actually being fat doesn't have anything to do with whether or not that person should lose weight or not. It would only be if you said, right, I myself, right, as a not fat person, am telling you not to lose weight. That would then make you a hypocrite, right? Hypocrisy has an, you have to have some type of pretending associated, or it's not hypocrisy. People confuse this with just you are guilty of the same thing you're telling the other person not to do. And a great example of this. I was a former drug addict, let's say.
Okay.
And I'm telling people not to be drug addicts. Am I a hypocrite?
No, because you've changed your ways and you're trying to. I would think that as a man, you're trying to lead by example.
Right.
That's what a traditional man.
But if I said, okay, I'm a former drug addict, you should stop being a drug addict, and secretly did drugs, would I be a hypocrite then?
Yeah.
Right. That's what actual hypocrisy is. So if a man,
I need to see the definition. No, I'm just
so
kidding.
if a man has a preference and he says, I don't want a woman who has a high body count, right? But he's fine with his own high body count. That's not hypocrisy.
Okay. I mean, to me, I'm still not convinced. It still seems like an unfair. Like, I mean, obviously people can have their preferences.
Well, you can say it's not fair.
Yeah, I just
but
don't understand.
You can't say it's hypocrisy.
I don't know.
What's hypocritical about it? Being guilty of that which you're accusing the other person, that's not hypocrisy.
Depending on the why.
But so when you say it's unfair, right?
I can't think of a better word to use.
That's fine, but
why.
let's go ahead and grant
double standard, maybe.
Yeah.
That might be better.
Let's go ahead
Why
and
is
grant.
there a double standard? Yeah.
No,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Let's go ahead and grant that it's unfair. So.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand where the logic is behind it. If you guys,
what do you mean?
Well, you
The
guys
logic of what?
The logic of why it's okay for I'm not going to say you, men typically always they are known for sleeping around. If they can get it, they're going to take it because maybe women. I'm sorry.
Well, can you clarify when you say it's okay, what specifically? Because I don't think I'm making the claim that it's okay for men to be promiscuous. But I am saying it's okay for a man who has a high body count
to want a woman who doesn't.
Date a woman who has a low body count or who's.
Yeah, you keep saying that over and over and over again, and she has not one time disagreed with that. It's the shaming part.
It's revolting, and yet they're sleeping around doing the same.
I'm actually fine with that too. I'm fine with that too.
So.
But are you saying it's revolting for both to be doing it,
or just
like both to be promiscuous,
so
or just women?
my viewpoint always follows from Christian ethics. So promiscuity in men is, from my view, right, is a no-no, just like it is with women. But while that's prescriptively true, meaning this is a prescription I give men and women, I'm also going to give a descriptive truth. The descriptive truth is that it's less of a big deal for women than it is for men. And because that is the case, that women perceive it that way versus men, the societal damage is always going to be lesser if men do it than if women do.
Sure. Yeah,
That's
that makes
it.
sense.
Simple.
Honestly, yeah.
There's my
Until that
prescription.
changes.
My prescription
Yeah.
is that neither of you should do this, but descriptively, if this behavior is found in one sex versus the other, it's more damaging. That's why we have virtues. That's what femininity and masculinity is. It's a tie to virtue from the sex, right? So if women engage in one type of virtue and it does way more damage if they abandon it versus men, it's feminine. It's masculine. If men refuse the virtue and does way more damage to society, that's a masculine virtue.
So you're saying societally because men typically do it. Hold on, let me take this back.
No, the
Because
ramifications on society
Yes.
are, it's not as bad, right? The outcomes are not as bad.
Because
if
women are
men,
generally more accepting of a high body.
No, not just that, because of reproduction. Like there's a reproductive element which goes into it, which would make it worse for especially for the outcome for children, if it is the case that women are promiscuous versus men. Like, for instance, you could have 300 promiscuous men all screwing the same woman, right? For like the purpose of reproduction or whatever. That would be less bad than if you had 300 women get pregnant and be single moms, right? Like ultimately that would be worse, right?
Wait, worse for what?
Just for society in general, if there was 300 single moms
Unless you needed more.
versus one single mom, right?
Yeah.
That would still be worse. You would agree, right?
I don't know. Are you trying to make kids? I don't. Yeah.
It's not a matter
I
of
get what
making
you're saying
kids.
with that.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to give you a scale.
Yeah.
That's it. Just like a sliding scale.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of it's good. Just which
Right.
would be more optimal, which would be
Which
better.
makes sense.
Personally, my boyfriend and my ex right before him both had very low body counts. I don't know the exacts, but I know it's pretty low, and I actually appreciated that in him.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not even saying that there's a matter of appreciation. We're just saying that ultimately, here's what I see, that women, generally speaking, have a lesser interest in the male body count than the men do with the female body count.
Sure.
And I also see the outcomes of if you have promiscuous women, because they can reproduce and men can't, seems to actually be worse if women are promiscuous than men. Because men can be promiscuous with a small pool of women, right? But if women become promiscuous with a large pool of men, there's going to be reproduction.
Is there a component here too to the unfairness and the double standard is that, and I agree with Andrew insofar as I don't think either men or women should be promiscuous. I don't think promiscuity is good in men or women. But I do know that there is some cohort of men who, for example, if a woman sleeps with a bunch of men, she's a slut. If a guy sleeps with a bunch of women, he's a stud. Like it's, and not all, trust me, there's men who frown on the guy who's promiscuous too, like I just said.
Right.
Like me.
But
I call them fucking degenerates.
They're all degenerates.
I like that we've gotten here though. This is great.
Yeah.
But there is some men who will be impressed by a man who's sexually successful with a lot of women. So is that a component of your argument?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of
Sure.
it. So
And-
I mean I'm understanding where Andrew came from with the whole,
Right. I mean, I would, again, just to be clear, not in favor of male promiscuity.
Right.
But I guess my response to that would be, when it comes to the impressiveness factor, or men who sleep with a lot of women, they're like, oh, you're such a stud, you're so cool.
That's all nice and dandy, but I still just keep coming back to like, I have been asked my body count by way more women than I would ever expect if I had only ever heard this conversation and never talked to a woman. So I just, like he says that the disgust factor is higher in men, but I don't know. I know it's anecdotal, but that's just been the experience.
The reality is, any single woman, if she wanted to, could be a slut.
Oh, yeah.
Any single woman could be a slut. Very, very few men can be a slut. Like most men, average man, he can't sleep with a new girl every single day. Every single girl at this table, if you wanted to, you could sleep with a new guy every single day of the week. You could probably fuck 3 guys in a day. You could probably fuck 10 guys.
Oh, hang on. I see you shaking your head. I will prove this to you. I will put a bet on the table right now for $500 that if you and I go out to the street right now with a cardboard sign, you hold it up and say, I'll sleep with any man who wants, and I hold it up and say, I'll sleep with any woman who wants, which one of us getting picked up first?
Okay.
Which one of us getting picked up first?
Probably me.
Yeah, huh?
But
Why do you disagree, I guess?
It's easier for women to go out and sleep around, but for some women that's not the case. And for some men, it's easy to go sleep around. So it's like you can't even say it's easier for one gender over the other because it's up to looks at the end of the day. Yeah. There's attractive men who can sleep around, and there's attractive women who can sleep around.
Well, okay. So look, just to be clear, I'm not saying that there's 0 men who are sluts. That's not even my argument.
Yeah,
there absolutely are men who can sleep with a bunch of women. This is not what I'm disputing. And then I think men, either if they're really good looking, they can do this. If they have like exceptional top tier charisma or personality, they can do it. If they're like, if they're super wealthy but they're a dork, it's probably still gonna be a little hard. But like if they're super rich, it might help.
Yeah,
and then if status,
Yeah.
like she said, status, celebrity, so like a professional athlete, a musician, an actor, these men, even if they're not really that good looking or they don't have great personalities or whatever, although sometimes status tends to give the aura or the halo of charisma, even if there's not actually any there. But yeah, so those are the scenarios in which men can be sluts, so to speak. But I don't think most men fall into those categories. Most men don't fall into those categories. So the reality is you can take a woman who's average looking, who's got a terrible personality, terrible personality. She has 0 status. She has no fame. She has no money. She doesn't have any of these things. She could hop on Tinder and sleep with 3 guys a day if she wanted to. Most women don't want to do that, but if she could, is what I'm trying to get at. Whereas like most men just can't do that.
You mean physically? I'm sorry.
What do you mean physically?
Do you mean they can't do that physically?
No, what I'm saying is they
like on the apps, they're not going to get enough
why can't they do it?
Even with like, so there's a degree of effort too, right? Like a guy who's really good looking, but he stays inside all the time and doesn't communicate with women, but otherwise could get laid, isn't going to get laid. So there is a degree of effort that's involved. But I would argue like an average looking guy, even if he's like putting in like a really good faith effort, like he spends 3 hours a day on dating apps, he spends another hour or 2 messaging back and forth with different women, he's not going to get laid every single day. Whereas a woman, I think you could could spend about an hour on a dating app, do some messaging, you could fuck three dudes in a day.
And I think that us women see it completely, for me anyway, I see it completely opposite. I was on like every app there was, and I got a lot of play, especially as like a masculine presenting person, but I think it was because I was a more masculine presenting person that I got so much play. So for me, I would definitely say that if I was biologically male, it would be so much easier for me to swipe right and link up than it would be because then, like he said, like women have periods.
You should try that.
I mean,
You should try that.
I have, and it was great.
Going to you though, have you been on dating apps at all?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How many guys do you swipe no on the dating apps?
I don't know. I haven't been on recently, but quite a few.
Like what percentage of men?
I don't know,
if there's 100
like
guys, how many do you say no to?
Probably like 60-40.
60-40. Okay, but how many of those guys do you meet up with?
2.
You've only met up with 2?
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Of all the men that you've wanted to sleep with, did you sleep with them?
No.
Okay, what's the rejection rate? So just to be clear, so you offered essentially I'm not necessarily suggesting super directly, but you offered to the guy basically, here's some pussy. You gave it to him on a silver platter and he's like, no.
That's not always been the case, but it's been more or less like, I don't know, in my experience, I've been willing to, but then it's just like the personality is just, I don't know how to explain it.
The guy's personality?
Yes, it's like
Yeah.
it's
Wait, that's making Brian's point.
It's not good, and then it just makes me like.
Wait, you were willing to have sex in general, but that specific guy, well, I mean, I think we're all willing in general to have sex with people. But yeah, of course. So you're saying, well, that's just a rejection then.
I mean,
some
yeah,
of
but
us
I mean,
anyway, I guess.
But so okay, but you were saying that. Wait, I'm just confused. So okay, of the men that you've offered sex to, were you turned down?
one time, yeah.
But just to be clear, I'm not saying like you had a boyfriend and one time he was sick and he didn't want to have sex that one time. I'm just saying.
No, I've been turned down before, yeah.
You've been rejected.
Yes,
okay.
I've been
How many guys have you turned down for sex?
For sex? I don't really have.
Well, I have a way to maybe demonstrate this that everybody will agree with. I call it the flasher hypothetical. It works like this. Hang on. It works like this. We'll take a 25-year-old random man, 25-year-old random woman. They have an overcoat
Can't
on.
believe
and
this
nothing
conversation is
underneath.
going on
Flashing
this
people
long.
in a random Walmart parking lot. And what they do is they open up the overcoat and they say, "Hey, you want to go have sex?"
What the fuck?
Tell me which one, man or woman, is going to have sex almost immediately versus the other one, man or woman?
Who I would have sex with?
No. Who
Or
any
who
any normal
person
person
in general?
normally would.
Probably a woman.
Okay, next.
I definitely say a woman.
Next.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Next.
Woman.
Next.
wait. I'm kind of confused on the question.
Woman. Woman. Okay, that's the end of that then.
Right, done.
That's the end of
Women are more desirable.
Is that the end of that? I don't even.
To bring it back to this though, the whole thing is like, okay, why is there this double standard where men are kind of exalted for their promiscuity, not by all people, but by some group of men, whereas women are almost kind of universally looked down upon if they're promiscuous. It really just comes down to the impressiveness of the achievement.
That makes sense.
I think to some degree it's incredibly easy for women to get laid, whereas for men there's some degree of skill and complexity in order to achieve that.
So for
Like
men,
as a woman,
yeah.
you don't need skill to get laid.
By the way, as demonstrated by our hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay. As demonstrated by our hypothetical.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty grimy, not that. I don't even know how to explain it. Just some grimy guys been able to get laid easily.
Sure.
All right. This episode is unbelievably boring. We've been going long enough today. There's not really anything super exciting going on. There is an actual debate tomorrow that I'll be covering.